All right, 1 second here. All right, well, everyone holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17. Again, we're going holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 17, and we're holding by verse 16, right? The end of the chapter. Actually, probably going to finish today. Again, Book of Leviticus Chapter 17, verses 16. We spoke last week about difference between an Ezra and a Ger, getting at the whole discussion about who's considered stranger, Ger Toshav, and why Ger Toshav doesn't apply today, the difference between Ger Toshav and a Noahide. Right, we spoke all about that. So the Torah continues, verse 16, again, Leviticus chapter 17, verse 16. Torah says, Im lo yichaves besaroi ubesaroi lo yirchatz v'nasa avoinu. Right, so here, remember we spoke about a person ate treif animal. He ate an animal that died because it had a heart attack, or neveus we call it, or carrion. So we said whether a native or stranger to wash their garments and lay themselves in water, i.e., go to the mikvah, they'll be unclean until the evening. Again, that was, back when purity and impurity, was much stronger than it is certainly today, because we don't have a temple in Jerusalem. But the Torah here says, last verse, the Torah says, but if he does not wash, right, doesn't wash his clothes or his flesh, really himself, right, or let's say better, he doesn't wash his clothes or go to the mikvah, then he shall bear his iniquity. And he sins, right? In other words, he bears the sin over here. So seemingly, if you don't do that, you don't get purity, right? You will not get purification from clothing for yourself as well. You shall bear the sin. All right, Rashi here says, what does it mean to bear the sin? Now, if he would eat sacred food, right? Let's say as Rashi says, if he ate something that was sanctified, supposed to be eaten in the temple, right? Let's say. Or he entered the sanctuary, right? He entered the mikdash. He entered right then it was the tabernacle, right? The Mishkan, right? But here it's going to be a reference to the base of Mikdash, right, in the future. So if he entered in the state of uncleanliness, what's the punishment? He gets kares, he gets spiritually cut off. Spiritually cut off, we mentioned, either means they die young, right, or under the age of 60, or their children die young, right, or children potentially die young in their lifetime, or both. Or seemingly both. That's what kares means here, being spiritually cut off. And a person can be spiritually cut off for a number of reasons, right? A person, God forbid, ate chametz on Passover, right? Ate any leavened product, right? He ate any leavened products on Passover, or desecrate Shabbos in public. Get death penalty if there be a temple in Jerusalem. Also, you get spiritually cut off. So over here, same thing. If you ate in a state of uncleanliness, person came to the Mishkan, to the temple, when they were in a state of uncleanliness, so not only get the sin, right? Not only is it forbidden, but you are liable to be what do you call it? To get covered. You would get spiritually cut off. Spiritually cut off again means either you die young, before the age of 60, your kids die in your lifetime, and you don't have a portion of the world to come. Right? Basically, you die like a dog. No offense, and dog lovers out there, a dog dies, poof, nothing happens. Right? Even if a person was reincarnated into a dog, which can happen, a person can be reincarnated into any animal or probably any inanimate object. Regardless, if they are going to be reincarnated and the dog dies, let's say they're in a dog, so the dog dies, the soul goes up. The soul's still going to get, the soul still gets judged over here, but in general, an animal dies, there is no doggy heaven, there is no cat heaven, the animal dies, right? It only has one aspect of the soul, right? There are 5 aspects for the soul that every Jew has, non-Jew has less than that, but everybody in common has the animalistic soul, right? What we call the nefesh behemoth, the animalistic soul. The animalistic soul is what, drives us to eat, drink, do other things, right? Like animals do. But obviously man has higher aspects of the soul, just as a side point, that that man is created after is created after animals, right? So man is the pinnacle of creation. So if man does what they're supposed to do, they use their soul and the body together in a proper way, i.e. according to God's plan, Torah and mitzvahs, whether a person converts or not, doesn't matter, right? Whatever they do to use it to the best of their ability, good. That means that man is the pinnacle of creation, the greatest of God's creation. If man does not do what they're supposed to do, right? They give into the animalistic side, right? Eat, drink, and be merry, lest tomorrow we die, right? So they hold according to that. They just do whatever their heart tells them to do. Then we're no better than animals. Not only that, we're worse than animals. Why? Because very simple. We could say, well, guess what? Animals were created before man. So if you act like an animal, essentially, just giving in to your base desires, right? Whatever that is, then you are no better than an animal, because that's all an animal does, right? An animal is just programmed DNA. Animal just has basic instincts. That's it. Now, an animal can choose, to eat, not to eat, whatever, but an animal does not have free will. Now, the Beis Halevi, who was the father of Rav Chaim Brisker, of blessed memory, the Beis Halevi, in his commentary on Chumash says, why did the animals deserve to be destroyed in the flood? Right? What do the animals do wrong? As we said, animals program DNA. So if animals are programmed DNA, they can't do anything to sin. They're programmed. Right? Why is God going to wipe them out? Why would God wipe them out? So comes on the Beis Halevi, and the Beis Halevi says that they intermingled species. I don't know, maybe he had rhinos, trying to shack up with a giraffe or a wolf or who knows what, right? And they intermingled outside their own species. Now, you tell me that's unheard of. How can that be? Animals don't have free will, right? So at a certain point in history, mankind had that kind of power where their actions had influence over animals. In other words, where would a dog try and, shack up with, put in the animal, whatever it is, that's not its own species. Not normal, right? Totally not normal. It's not according to nature. Wouldn't be according to the nature of what animals normally do. Now, you can hybrid an animal. You can take 2 animals, put them together, make a new species. That's a different issue, but, they're not doing that. They're not doing that naturally. And just as a side point, that is forbidden for a Jew or a non-Jew, right? A non-Jew that's not going to convert, a Noahide, will definitely have that issue. Won't be death penalty per se, but you're not allowed to play with creation. So, a mule, as we always say, is a very strong animal, right? A mule is a hybrid between a donkey and a horse. What's the problem with the mule? Sterile, can't reproduce. That's not by accident, right? Definitely not by accident, because you're not allowed to play with creation. Now, God allows it to happen. Okay. He doesn't stop it. Very good. But, there are repercussions, i.e., this animal can't reproduce, right? If you take I'll see if my botany is any good here. You take a peach and a plum, you make it into a nectarine, right? So you're allowed to eat it. You're allowed to get benefit from it. Whether a Jew does it or a non-Jew does it, doesn't really matter. There are certain things that you're not allowed to get benefit from. Let's say milk and meat, right? The Torah says you're not allowed to cook a calf in its mother's milk. Mentions 3 times, right? Why is it mentioned 3 times? Right? Karaite's going to have a big problem here because they don't hold according to the rabbis, so they're going to have to come up with a very interesting reason why it mentions it 3 times. But the Torah says you're not allowed to eat it, or what they better. You're not allowed to cook a calf in its mother's milk. We understand, the rabbis tell us you're not allowed to eat it. You're not allowed to cook it even if nobody eats it. You're not allowed to get benefit from it, right? So with certain things, so therefore, if a person by mistake made a cheeseburger, made a cheeseburger, can't give it to your dog. Can't give it to anybody, right? You're going to flush it down the toilet. Nobody can get benefit from it. So there are certain things that if a person does it, it's still forbidden. But certain things you're allowed to get benefit from. Certain things you're not allowed to get benefit from. So you say, how do we know? Right? $1 million question. How do we know what we're permitted to get benefit from or not? So rabbis tell us. This you can, this you can't. They tell us. So again, if a person, wants to be a Karaite, they don't want to be, believe in oral law, very good. So give me a good reason, that it's mentioned 3 times, don't cook a calf in its mother's milk. So we understand what the reason is. Rabbis gave us the reasons. They didn't tell us all the reasons, right? Those are significant reasons. Now, if you're not going to hold according to that, you're going to have a problem, right? So you have the problem how to answer over here. So in this case, a person gets spiritually, you're going to get spiritually cut off, right? If you came to the temple or the Mishkan in a state of impurity. Again, we mentioned before, we don't have this level of impurity. Touching a dead animal doesn't, even if you went to the mikveh, and you sat there for a week, you had your snorkel, your fins, you had your rubber ducky, whatever, you were swimming in there for like a month. Very good. Doesn't take off the impurity. Right? There are many things that a person can be impure today that we can't take it off. It's impossible. Right? For a woman who, after she gets her period and goes to the mikveh, okay, so that takes off that level, that level of impurity. But we're all in the state, of impurity, which we sort of, someone asked me last week, I don't know if I really dealt with it, but deal with it now, about the fact that you can have non-Jews that can go on the Temple Mount. Can go on Har Bayis, or what we call the Temple Mount. Now, Jews don't go up there because we're not sure, where to step. If you step in the wrong place, then, you get spiritually cut off. So obviously, it's not worth it. The vast majority of rabbinic authorities hold that it is forbidden for a Jew to go up there. There are some that'll say, we know where to stand, we know the exact place, and, we have a right to go up there. It's a holiest place, right? You're close to the Holy of Holies, right? So obviously, you gotta be careful where you step. Very good. Again, it's a minority opinion. Majority of rabbis would tell you that you're not allowed to go up. A Jew's not allowed to go up. For sure, a non-Jew can. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. They're Muslim, they're Christian, they're Buddhist. Irrelevant. They don't have a level of impurity, right? In this case, impurity doesn't apply to them. So therefore, they want to go up. I tell any non-Jew, you come to visit Israel, go up there. Why not? It's not a problem. Even if you're going to convert, it doesn't matter. Right? You're allowed, non-Jews are allowed to go up there. A Jew can't. So again, it doesn't matter, Christian, Buddhist, this, that. They don't have the same level of impurity, right? The non-Jew doesn't have the same level, right, as a Jew. It makes sense. They're not given the same aspects of the soul. So in either case, even if we would say and I spoke about this before in a number of Q&As, but I'll just mention again, even if it would be permissible, even if we know where to stand, and that wouldn't be an issue of what I would call spiritual cooties, right? Can't go up there, right? Spiritual cooties, as I would say. You can't go up there. Okay. Now, even if you knew where to stand, even if 100% you knew where to stand, what's the problem? The Arabs are going to start a war. Because even though they know and we know that it belongs to us, right? It's kind of ironic. They put the Dome of the Rock, they put their Dome of the Rock up there, this holy place supposedly for them. Yeah, but they didn't put up on nothing. It's like, oh, we didn't exist, they came first. Well, why is it on something? Why is it on the outer wall of the Western Wall? And why did it come 1,500 years later? Kind of interesting question. No, that doesn't matter. Don't confuse me with the facts. But those are the facts. In any case, the Arabs will absolutely make war. Now they might make war anyway, even if you walk around downtown Jerusalem or anywhere else. But this for them is an act of war. This is an act against religion, even if the religion's a crock and we don't believe in it and there are a lot of problems with it and all that. Doesn't matter. They are going to make a religious war. They'll fight to the end. Right? The second Intifada started, just historically, started when Ariel Sharon was prime minister then, right before Rosh Hashanah went up on the Temple Mount. Now, the police will give you problems, the Arabs will give you problems, right, to go up there to pray. It's an act of provocation. It's an act of provocation. Now, some people would say, some hot-headed right-wing people would say, but we have a right to go up there. And even if we know where to stand, very good. We know where to stand, okay? So we have a right to be there because we need to show the Arabs that it belongs to us. So again, I'll ask the $1.5 million question. I'll keep upping the ante here. And that is, you don't think the Arabs know? You don't think they really know it belongs to us? They know. They know what the truth is. 100% they know what the truth is, but they have to perpetuate the lie. So they have to make a whole ruckus about it. But someone will say, we have to show it's ours. Very good. We have to show other places are ours. Because otherwise the Arabs will come and take it over. Okay, that's a good point. There is truth to that. Right? There might be truth to that. Okay. But even so, this is something, not the case. I don't need to do something. I don't need to make a provocation in order to ram it down their throat. Because this is something they already know. So, but by them, it's an act against religion. For them, since it's an act against religion, they are going to fight to the very end. They don't care. They have, tens of thousands of people willing to die for this. That's what they're going to do. Right? So, therefore, even if you tell me I know where to stand, even if you tell me you're not going to get spiritually cut off, even if you tell me you got these rabbis behind you, very good. But there's going to be a question here. Are you considered a rodef? A rodef is considered a pursuer, right? In other words, what you're doing is putting Jewish lives in danger. That's what it does. And there will be Jewish lives, God forbid. Jewish people could die because the person wants to show their machismo, right? They want to show how strong they are and ram it down their throat and say, yeah, it belongs to us. Well, they know that. It's an act of war against them. It's an act against religion. And they'll send tens of thousands of people to die, because of that. But someone's going to say, if we don't show, they're going to think it's theirs. They know. They know what the truth is. Not everything a Jew does in the land of Israel, wherever they go, is going to be, it's going to start a war. It's going to start an intifada. You say they think that all the land belongs to them. Okay, we're not going to get into politics. Yeah, that might be true. Yeah, if I walk, downtown Tel Aviv or in other places, could they attack? They could. But is that a provocation? Not a provocation. They think the whole land belongs to them. Okay. Right? But that's not a provocation. It's going to lead to war. It's going to lead to, God forbid, Jewish people to die and put their lives in danger. Not going to lead to that. If you do something in their face and something that belongs to them, or they feel it belongs to them, or goes against, quote unquote, their religion, then every last one of them will be willing to die. Every last one of them will be willing to die. So even if you tell me it's permissible in general to go up there, and you know where to stand, which again is not the majority opinion by any stretch, but even if you say I have the right and I want to go up there and have more intention, you're in the holiest place in the world, and all that, think about the repercussions. Think about the repercussions of such action. You're putting people's lives in danger. Somebody who's considered a pursuer, you could kill them. You have a right potentially to kill them, because that's going to bring more danger. Now, whether they do have that status or not, some people would definitely say you go up there, that's your status. You would have a right to kill them. Now, you obviously can't do that, but they are putting Jewish lives in danger. Right? Probably mostly in Israel, but probably other places also. But they're gonna make a religious war out of it. If they're gonna make a religious war, you have no right to go up there. Even again, it doesn't matter whether you know where to stand or not. That's not the issue. Even if you do, even if you're not going to get spiritually cut up, you're playing with fire. I think you're playing with fire, but even so, even if you knew where to stand and this is not going to be an issue, very good. There's another issue you got to think about. What's that other issue? You got to deal with the Arabs. The police won't let you go up there either, right? If you want to pray up there as like a group, for sure they won't let you up there. Maybe individuals here and there, maybe, but as a group, that's sticking in their face. That's a provocation. That's a real thing. They will go out afterwards and start killing people or trying to kill people because you rammed it down their throat, right? Which, again, is not something we're interested in doing, right? The Jewish way is not to start up with non-Jews. That's not the Jewish way. Even if we're right, we have a right to defend ourselves, right? Again, not getting into politics or anything else. We absolutely have a right to defend ourselves, and we will if we have to, right? I'm not, I'm talking, I'm not talking physically here, right? People are going to say all these negative things against Judaism. We have a right to, defend that, why it's not what they say. Have a right to that. But to ram it down their throat and to say, well, how all their stuff is stupid and idolatry and this and that. Yeah, we think that's true, right? Don't get me wrong. We definitely think it's true. No question. But to sit there and ram it down their throat, no mitzvah to do that. There's definitely no mitzvah to do that. You're starting up in that, and that's exactly one of the main reasons that a lot of the rabbis had a problem with. I spoke about this a few weeks ago. One of the reasons that rabbis had a problem with Rabbi Meir Kahane, Shem Yikam Damo, God should avenge his blood. Yeah. Why they have problems with him? Because he started up with the non-Jews. Right? And it was right. I don't think many people are going to disagree with a lot of things he said. Right? He was 100% right. But there's a way to do it. There's a way to do it. And one way not to do it is to start up with him. Right? Even if you're right. Even if we're right. We don't, we have a right to defend our beliefs. And if a person's going to debate somebody, okay, that's not a problem. Starting up with them, it's a different issue. People say they start up with us. Yeah, I know some people on social media, they'll do whatever they can. They say Christians say things, whatever. They feel they have to defend God. Well, you know what? God can defend himself. But it's desecration of God's name. Okay, not the literal meaning. But they'll say this is blasphemy. You're right, it's blasphemy. But who says you have to answer? Not only that, what are you doing on social media? You should be learning. Why are you wasting time? Right? But I know some people who will, anytime this comes up, like anytime, because they got nothing better to do, right? Anytime this comes up, what are they going to do? They are going to answer because they feel they have to defend God. And I say the same thing, all the time. I'll say the exact same thing. God does not need you to defend him. Oh, but it looks really bad. They have to hear the truth. They're not going to listen to the truth. They're not interested in the truth. They lied to themselves. They've been lied to for, thousands of years. It's not anything new. They're not going to change. You're not going to convince them. It's like, a person wants to confront a missionary. Very good. Every time you ask them something, they don't have an answer. They go on to something else, like they're programmed. Like total waste of time. I could, bang my head against the wall till it bleeds. That's obviously not a good thing. This is a waste of time, right? It's a total waste of time. So, but there are people that say, no, I have to answer. And I got an obligation. You don't have an obligation. 100%. You have no obligation to try and convince a Christian to be a Noahide. Right? And there's no obligation to try and recruit Noahides. Someone wants to learn, very good. Right? Claim against the Jews, you'll say. Someone will say, I've had a troll say many, many times, come on, you're chosen people, you have a right to go out there, convince people to be Noahides. Who says? Just because we're a light into nations doesn't mean I have to go and, proselytize to non-Jews to keep their mitzvahs. Not at all. If they come to me, they want to learn, very good. I have to convince a non-Jew not to steal or not to kill. No, come on. We didn't kill Grandpa. That's euthanasia. That's not murder. It's mercy. Put him out of our misery, or his own misery, suffering. Okay, but I have to run around teaching non-Jews that that's murder, and you can't steal from Uncle Sam, right? And what do you call it? Uncle Sam takes too much. Yeah, maybe he does. If they find legal loopholes, very good. But, I have to run around teaching people things that are universal. I try and convince people not to worship cows. I don't know. Why is that my obligation? It's not my obligation. They say, how would they find out otherwise? So what does the Gemara say? The Gemara says you want to go in the right direction, God will help you. You want to go in the wrong direction, God will not stop you. So you want to be a fool, be a fool. It's your own fault. God gave you a brain, told you to use it. Oh, but I grew up in Russia, everyone's communist. Okay. But not everyone stayed communist. Not everyone stayed atheist. Maybe a lot of the people did, okay. But God gave you a brain. Right? If Abraham came to the realization at the age of 3 or 40 or older that, there was a designer in the world, that there's a world of design. All you have to do is look at nature. The human body, mentioned this many times. Right? You look at nature, you look at the human body, very, very clear there has to be a design. Right? There's design there. It's not there random. The only part of the body everyone would agree that we don't need, right, is the foreskin. And that God says for a Jew, take it off. That you get an obligation to take off. Now, there'll be a difference of opinion, every number of years. Some people will say you take it off because it's good against cancer. It's not good against cancer. It doesn't matter. 8th day, welcome to the covenant, bam, right? That's why a baby can't, is not allowed to speak. Imagine baby's going to tell you who the caterer should be, where you should have it. And then, then he sees this knife. He's like, you ain't doing that to me. Like, it's over. That's why baby can't speak. One reason, potentially. But, at the end of the day, what do you have? There's design here. It's very clear there's design. It's not like, oh, you've been brainwashed. Take a look. I'm sitting at a table, no one can see. But, what do you think? Table came by itself? It was made by itself? Don't think so. Someone had to have made it. Very good. And there are things that are a lot more complex in the world. How can you say nobody made it? It happened by itself. It happened by mutation, right? All these mutations. Right? So I have over here that regardless of it's true. You got to keep in mind, I'm not allowed to do whatever I want. We don't live in an ownerless world. There's responsibility that a person has to take. Now, I would agree. Going up on the Temple Mount would be a great thing. Person going to have, maybe an unbelievable epiphany. You're very close to the Holy Holies, where the Kohen Gadol went once a year. And if he did what he was supposed to do right, he comes out alive. Even better, right? So it could be an unbelievable experience. But is it worth it to take the chance? Not worth it to take the chance. But again, so halachically, you got a problem. Going out there halachically, you got a problem. You'd be spiritually cut off. That's a pretty serious thing. But even if you wouldn't have that problem, and a person's going to say, I have a right to go up there because it belongs to the Jewish people. Everybody knows. Deep down, they know who belongs. They believe they drink the same Kool-Aid, they believe in the same thing. Okay, so they were brainwashed, never thought about it, or they don't care. They think it belongs to them. Very good. They know what the truth is. They know what the truth is. So I have to sit there and ram it down their throat? Why do I have to ram it down their throat? No mitzvah for me to ram it down their throat. So even if something is permissible, the person has to remember, even if it's permissible, doesn't grant me the right to do it whenever I want. Doesn't do that. There are parameters. There are times a person may have to protest, may have to stand up and say this is wrong, regardless of the ramification. You might have to. It depends where, it depends how, right? It depends on a lot of different factors. Okay. But doesn't give me free reign to do whatever I want. There are people out there think they can do whatever they want. And, they'll say in the name of Torah, in the name of God, and they're a bunch of empty people, got nothing better to do. A bunch of rabble-rousers, right? Cause a lot of problems. There was starvation. I'll just give an example. There was, during the Second Temple, there were these people, they were called they called them the Biryoni. These people that Rashi says were, empty people, looking for a fight, looking, rile things up. So there were I think more than 20 storehouses of food. I think 20, 21, 22, forget exact number. There were like a lot of storehouses of food that Jewish people had during that time. And these Biryoni, these thugs, we'll call them. Yeah, these thugs, what they do? They want a rebellion against the Romans. They want to be able to be strong and fight against the Romans. So they came up with a great idea. How we're going to make them strong? Now we're going to make them fight. We're going to burn all the storehouses of food. I know who came up with this brilliant idea. Yeah, they're going to starve the people in order that they should fight. Well, you don't fight as well if you're starving, but there was tremendous starvation during the Second Temple period. Yeah, and that's the reason. They burned all the storehouses of food. There people died of starvation. The curses at the end of Book of Deuteronomy, talk about women eating their children because they were starving. I mean, these things came to pass. They weren't just like, we're going to throw out these, we're going to throw out these curses and whatever happens. No, there were, all these things came to pass. There'll be a time you don't know day is night, night is day. Now you bring that to more recent history. You read any people survived the Holocaust, that's what it's like. They were running for their lives, day and night. Didn't know night was day, day was night. A lot of horrific things. I don't have to go into detail, but there are a lot of horrific things that the curses speak about. They all happened. Throughout Jewish history have happened. We're not looking for more. We're not looking for more over here, but this is one of them. So there'll be a time in history you'll have no food, you'll be starving, and women will eat their kids because they have no food. That's horrific. I mean, I utilize it, no pun intended. It's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. So here you got these thugs, that's what I'm going to call them, these Biryonim, you got these thugs. So they're going to burn all the storehouses of food, make everybody starve so they'll fight better. I don't know. Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara says, Yochanan ben Zakkai, I think it was his nephew. One of his nephews was part of this group. He couldn't convince him not to do it. He was like the Gadol Hador, the greatest rabbi of that generation. He was also afraid of them. Who knows what they're going to do to him? I tried to convince them, placate them, this, that. Didn't work. They wanted war. They wanted a fight. They wanted more people, this, that. That's what they did. They burnt all these storehouses of food. So, but that caused serious problems. No food. There's a story of a rich woman that died because, she asked, one of her servants, get me white bread. They didn't have white bread or white flour, brought her, I don't know, crummy flour, whatever it was. She asked for this, they didn't have it. She asked for that, they didn't have it. Yeah, and then She's walking by the way, her shoe fell off, her foot fell, in a pile of dung. She was so grossed out, she died. And the Gemara says she died. So, a lot to speak about on that also, but the point is, during that time, they did themselves. They absolutely did themselves. Now, the destruction was going to happen anyway. Okay. But starving your own people to get them to fight? I don't know. Doesn't, if I was a general or someone was a general, say, how are we going to how are we going to boast to the masses? How are we going to get them to fight like no tomorrow? We're going to starve them. This is a long time war they're going to have. You don't have any food. Forget the pre-made stuff or whatever. They'll probably kill you anyway. They don't have that. They don't even have that. They have anything. You're starving your own people to get them fight better. Really? Yeah, let me finish Rashi here. So Rashi over here says, right, you will get spiritually cut off because you went into the sanctuary. You went into the Mishkan or the temple in the state of uncleanliness, which is forbidden to do. Right? You have to be in a certain state of purity. Otherwise you can't go in. And then he says, what's the last part of the verse say? But if he doesn't wash himself, he doesn't go to the mikvah, right? Then he bears his iniquity. He sins. He bears the sin. Why? For the omission to lave his body before entering the sanctuary or before eating anything sacred, right? He's going to eat any sacred food. He's liable to be spiritually cut off, right? He said he's going to be liable to be spiritually cut off. But so what do we have over here? He says, what didn't he do? He didn't go to the mikvah. He didn't go to the mikvah before entering sanctuary, and he didn't go to the mikvah before eating sacred food. In other words, there was food that was consecrated in the temple, very good. You have to be in a state of holiness to eat it. They weren't in a state. If a person wasn't in a state of holiness to eat it, you get spiritually cut off. Now, there's one thing missing though. What about washing his clothes? Do we say the same thing about washing his clothes or not? So Rashi says, for the omission to wash his clothes, he only gets lashes, right? He's only going to get lashes over here. It's very interesting. So we make a distinction, right? We make a distinction. Make a distinction over here that he says that I understand if you weren't in a pure state, then you went to the sanctuary, you're going to get spiritually cut off. If you ate something that was sanctified in the temple, also you're going to get spiritually cut off. Well, what about, it says it's going to be unclean until evening, right? If you didn't go to the mikvah, he's going to wash his garments. So Rashi's asking, or stating, what about washing garments? If he didn't wash his garments, does he get spiritually cut off or not? Right? So Rashi here says no. He gets lashes. Not going to be good either way, but he gets lashes. At least he has a portion of the world to come. Right? He's not going to lose the portion of the world to come. He gets lashes. Very good. So where does Rashi know this from? Where does Rashi know this from? So we'll give you a little bit of a Talmudic dictum here. There's a medrash. Rashi is quoting a medrash, and the medrash says that sometimes we have an idiom. In Gemara, it's called lo zuavzu. Not this. Let's say not only this, but even that. Right? That's where normally in the Gemara usually it's brought down. In rabbinic literature, it's brought down. It means not this, not only this, but even that. Right? In other words, it mentions something less expected at the end. Now, what should the Torah have said? If we look at the Torah, what did the Torah say? The Torah said he didn't wash his clothes, he didn't go to the mikvah, he bears his iniquity. Now, what would that sound like? That would sound like, if he didn't do that, he gets spiritually cut off. That's what it sounds like. Right? What should the Torah have said? So it should have said, but if he doesn't go to the mikveh, neither does he wash his clothes. But it doesn't say that. That is what the Torah should have said. The fact it says that he didn't wash his flesh, i.e. he didn't go to the mikveh. But it says it in close connection too. He's going to bear the sin. Right? Now, what does bearing the sin mean? See, if you're a Karaite, got a lot of questions here. Right? In other words, Karaite doesn't believe in oral tradition, doesn't want to, Karaites will not listen to what the rabbis say. Very good. At the end of this verse, the Torah tells me he's going to bear the iniquity. Right? Literally, it says, V'nasa avoinoi. He's going to bear his sin. Iniquity means sin. Anyone who doesn't know, that's what iniquity means. He's going to bear his sin. Very good. What does that mean? What in the world does that mean? What level of sin are we talking about? Death penalty? Spiritually cut off? Lashes? Doesn't tell me. The Torah only says he's going to bear the sin. Yeah? So you ask a Karaite, we'll pick on the Karaites here. Yeah, we'll pick on the Karaites. So you ask a Karaite, very good. What level of sin, are we talking about? What's the punishment? Right? What are they going to answer? What are they going to answer? Doesn't tell me. Torah does not tell me in any which way. Right? So the fact that it says that it's telling you that they didn't wash their flesh, what does it mean they didn't wash their flesh? They didn't go to the mikveh. Okay. They didn't immerse in the mikveh. Very good. But it's said in close connection with the last part of the verse. Right? It says, "Ubisaro lo yirchatz." In their flesh they did not wash, i.e. they didn't go to the mikveh. Ve'nasa avoinoi. And they're going to bear the sin. Now, isn't there a connection? Shouldn't there be a connection over there? Since bearing the sin is very close to what? To not going to the mikveh, that their flesh wasn't washed. What does that imply? Bearing the sin is going on what it said before, i.e. the flesh didn't get washed. Flesh didn't go to the mikveh. Very good. Which implies what? Which implies kares. Being spiritually cut off. Again, it mentions it last. So I would not have known, Rashi says, I would never have known that, except for the juxtaposition of the verse, he says, I wouldn't have known that someone who didn't wash their clothes in a state of impurity is going to get spiritually cut off. Why not? Why not? Because in verse 16 it says, if he didn't wash his clothes, and it says, and his flesh wasn't washed, i.e. didn't go to the mikveh. That he's going to get kares for. That he's going to get spiritually cut off for. What about the fact he didn't wash his clothes? So not washing his clothes is not in proximity to what it says at the end. At the end, it says he's going to bear the sin. Okay, on what? What did he do? Oh, you told me. Very simple. It's going to bear the sin on what he did before. Oh, what did he do before? He didn't go to the mikveh. Very good. What about washing clothes? What about washing clothes? So the Torah should have said, to make it very clear, if he didn't wash his flesh and he didn't wash his clothes, then I would have said, very good. Then if he doesn't wash his clothes, what happens? He gets spiritually cut off. That's what it would mean. He gets spiritually cut off. But the fact that it didn't say that, and it only said that he didn't go to the mikveh, then it says he's going to bear the sin. Now, what's he bearing the sin for? You tell me both. It says both in the verse. He didn't wash his clothes, and he didn't wash his flesh. Very good. But how do I know? How do I know bearing the sin is going on both? What would I think grammatically? Grammatically, I would think whatever comes before it, that's what it's talking about. And now you're going to give me Webster's 8th definition. No, really, fact, it said you're not going to wash his clothes. Since you're not going to wash his clothes, that also applies. Why? Why would I say both apply? That's what Rashi says over here. The fact that it doesn't say to wash his clothes, it doesn't come first. Sorry, it comes first. And not the fact that he washes his flesh. That means he must have got a different punishment. That's what it means. It can't mean he got the same. That he got spiritually cut off. Because if he would have spiritually got cut off, it should have said, like it says over here. It should have said, if he didn't wash his flesh and he didn't wash his clothes, he bears the iniquity. What would he bear the iniquity on? In fact, he didn't wash his clothes. Very good. That makes sense. That's in proximity. But the fact that it's not in proximity, I can't make that assumption. Except in one case. If I would know, if in general, we would know another place where it says that if he didn't wash his clothes, he gets spiritually cut off, then he didn't have to tell me that. Right? Then I could have understood that if he's talking about the flesh, not getting washed and he bears the sin, good, it's going on that. I wouldn't expect at all to tell me that it's talking about washing his clothes. Why not? Because the Torah doesn't repeat things for no reason. Right? We said before in verse 15, that it says if you eat carrion, i.e. an animal that dies by itself, right? Let's say you ritually slaughter it, and before it dies, by ritually slaughtering, it had a heart attack, right? So you're not allowed to eat it. So he has to wash his garments and leave himself his water, right? He has to go to the mikveh. So Rashi there says, spoke about this last week. Rashi says, speaking about carrying of what? A clean bird. Talking about a clean bird who died, not in the way of ritual slaughter, right? Very good. Where does Rashi know that from? How does he know it's only talking about a clean bird? Why isn't it talking about an animal? Oh, good question. Yeah, where does Rashi know it from? Very simple, because, previous chapters, it talked about animals. It talked about animals, and if you eat them in this state, you have to go to the mikveh. The Torah can't mean that. Why can't the Torah mean that? Why can't the Torah mean that? Rashi says clear, right? He says it's got to be talking about a clean bird. Why? Because I already mentioned about an animal. And the Torah is never going to repeat anything for no reason. And if the Torah does repeat something and goes into great detail, then it's telling you for emphasis for different things. It's bringing it out. Right? But the Torah is not going to repeat something. See, this is why you have to know inside now. This is why you have to know what applies, what doesn't apply. Right? Why? Because if we know the Torah about Peh, if we know it verbatim, and we know all the intricacies, we'd ask the question. We'd also ask the question, you can't tell me that. You can't tell me that. Why not? So I already know it before. Can't be talking about that. Right? 100% it can't be talking about that. Right? And you learn things also from juxtaposition of verses. Because the Torah doesn't repeat itself for no reason. Give an example. In Exodus chapter 37, beginning the Parshas Vayakil, what does it talk about? God says, you got to keep Shabbos. But for 2 chapters or more, what's the Torah been talking about? Building the tabernacle. All the loops, the bars, the what do you call it? The wood, and the the altars and all that goes into a great amount of detail. Great amount of detail. Now, the Torah says, beginning of chapter 37, God said you have to keep Shabbos. Markesha. What's the connection? Didn't the Torah already tell me, Exodus chapter 20, you got to keep Shabbos? Yes. Didn't it tell me in in Exodus chapter 19. You got to keep Shabbos. You're not allowed to carry. You're not allowed to, light a fire. You're not allowed to cook. Torah already told me. So if the Torah already told me, the Torah doesn't repeat itself for no reason. What in the world is the Torah telling me here? I got verse after verse about the loops, the bars, the class, all this. Got to take out a map, figure out how the whole thing works and it's put together. Very good. So all of a sudden the minute say, I got a break. God gave me a break over here. Tremendous break. What was the break? He said you got to keep Shabbos. Like, yeah, sure. What in the world's the connection? Rashi, other commentaries say on the spot, you know what the connection is? That whatever was done in the tabernacle, whatever was done in the Mishkan does not supersede Shabbos. Does not supersede Shabbos. So whatever was done or anything similar, right? I added that, but anything done in the tabernacle forbidden on Shabbos. And the rabbis came along and said anything similar, you might forget at Shabbos, you might desecrate, you might come to a more severe transgression. Very good. But you have to ask the question. Absolutely, you have to ask the question, what's it doing here? Or I get another case where the Torah says, got to honor my parents. Very good, right? We already know that from Exodus chapter 20. Very good. Then the Torah says, the Torah says you got to keep Shabbos. And then it says, the mitzvah kibbud avim. You got to honor your parents. Very good, Ma Kesher. What's the connection? And the connection is, if a person's parents tell you to desecrate Shabbos, mitzvah not to listen to them. Mitzvah not to listen to them. Now, if there wasn't a juxtaposition of verses, I might say, if they say you have to break Shabbos, you have to break Shabbos. You got a mitzvah to listen to your parents. Anyone ever heard the old, someone will make an argument and say, but isn't honoring parents one of the 10 commandments? Yes. You know what Kaufman's snotty answer would be? Isn't one of the 10 commandments you got to keep Shabbos? Nah. You also got to keep Shabbos. Yeah? So if a parent tells you desecrate Shabbos because it's one of the 10 commandments, well, I got another 10 commandments. It's keep Shabbos. So which one? Which one you push off? What would the parent say? You listen to me. What does God say? You listen to me. Who do you listen to? Now, you're going to be respectful. Definitely have to be respectful. But at the end of the day, God comes first. No matter what they say. No matter what difficulty they give you, God comes first. So even if you have to desecrate Shabbos, you have to. It's because matters, saving a life, other things. But in general, they tell you to break Shabbos. What did my Rebbe tell you? Go eat kugel. Gotta be nice. Right? It's something to go eat kugel. You can't do it. It's forbidden. But you have to honor me. You know what the way to honor them is? By doing what God said. That's the way to honor them. You have to do it in a respectful way, though. If they say, well, I think this and that or whatever. You say, well, it's interesting. The Torah says like this. Or the Torah says like that. Now, they could say, well, I don't care what the Torah says. Doesn't really matter. But you're not telling them directly they're wrong. That's also forbidden. Right? Even if they are wrong, even if they're blaspheme, doesn't matter. You have to show some level of respect. Even if they're evil, difference of opinion between the Torah and the Rambam, whether you have an obligation to honor an evil parent. Even if they abuse you. Okay. Right? According to one opinion, they brought you into this world for better or for worse. You have to honor them. They walk in a room, you have to stand up for them. Almost doesn't matter what they've done to you. It's very hard to understand. But there's another opinion. The other opinion says, respect, you have to. You have to have a certain level of respect. You can't make fun of them, right? You can't embarrass them in public, even if they deserve it. Use your portion of the world to come. You gotta be very, very careful. Respect, you have to have. Respect, you have to have. Honor, stand up for them, they walk in a room? No. Not sit in the chair unless they give you permission? No. That you don't have to go that far. It's a very hard mitzvah to do. Very, very hard mitzvah to do. So even if they're going to blaspheme against the Torah, you're still not allowed to say you're wrong. You're dead wrong. I mean, people say it. I mean, I'm not saying to their parents, right? Secular people say, no, you're wrong. Oh, come on, mom, dad, come on, you missed the point. You missed the boat. You don't even know what you're talking about. That 100% is forbidden. For a Jew, 100% is forbidden. For a non-Jew, maybe not forbidden, but it's not a good thing to do. Right? It's probably come under Kaufman's laws of what I would say moral imperatives. If a person, you have people that never learned anything, they don't know anything. Biggest question, ketchup, mustard, relish on my hot dog. That's where they're holding. Yeah. So, what are you going to even argue with them? They know nothing from nothing. I'll tell you a story. I see some questions here, I'll deal with them. But I once got locked in my bathroom, in the morning, before I had to go pray, before I had to go daven. So whatever, took good half an hour, 40 minutes, finally to get out. The key jammed, and come to find out, after we got it fixed, there was a small coin probably one of my grandkids put in there, and the thing was in so tight there was no way to get it out. I'd break the lock. Yeah. Anyway, so I said, I wish I could have prayed, but you can't pray in the bathroom. It's forbidden to pray in the bathroom. So somebody says, now you can hear where the question's going. I just told the story to someone as as the end of a conversation, kind of like a funny anecdote, that happened. So I said, I couldn't pray in the bathroom, So the person says, why? Is that one of the rules? Is that one of the rules? So my answer was, yeah, it's one of the rules. I gotta sit there and explain, Torah, Kedusha, holiness, bathroom, even if there's nothing disgusting in it. Yeah, I'm gonna sit there and explain and forget it. Not interested. Is that one of the rules? Yeah, it's one of the rules. That was it. You're gonna have a conversation about it, forget it. Yeah. So, I always say you gotta pick your battles. You gotta see where they're coming from, and like you're arguing with a brick. Less than a brick, they don't know anything. So sit there, it's like apples and oranges, right? It's nothing to talk about. Absolutely nothing to talk about. Yeah, let me see the questions here. I can't imagine. 1 second. Yeah, let me see. Someone asks, does courage mean your soul ceases to exist? Yes. You know what? Again, let's be real graphic here. Yeah, I'll keep this clean. In 4 letters or less, what does the word poof mean? Poof! That's what it means. Gonzo. That's it. Destroy. Soul gets destroyed, nothing left of it. It can happen. Right? Usually we say the soul is infinite, it can take a lot of punishment for a very long time, until the end of time, probably. But if God doesn't want that soul to exist, he extinguishes it. He blows it up. He destroys it. So kares means you're spiritually, that you don't have a portion of the world to come. Your soul gets obliterated. Now, most people are not going to have their soul obliterated, right? And most people are not that evil. But God may, he may have to pay somebody back in this world for, one mitzvah they might have done in their lifetime, like, cross-granting, they cross-granted the street, they gave charity once or whatever. So he gives them the rewards of the mitzvah in this world. Yeah, but it means that they don't have, it means that they don't have a portion of the world to come. That's what it means. They don't have any connection. So Rebbe would say that, if, let's say we said kares, being spiritually cut off means that a person, has no portion of the world to come. They die young, their kids die young in their lifetime. Let's say they die before the age of 60. Okay. But you see, people that are liable to be spiritually cut off, let's say they ate chametz on Passover, they ate any leavened product on Passover, they're liable to be spiritually cut off if they don't repent. But you see, they're all walking around. You see, all these people desecrate whatever they desecrate that you get spiritually cut off for. You see, they're alive. And they're walking around, they're hanging out, they have a long life. So Rabbi says, yeah, but you have to see how they live their lives. They're living their lives like an overeducated animal. They live their lives like animals. So they live like animals, they die like animals. They have no spiritual core. It's like their spiritual core is finished. So therefore, they could even be dead. They could even be dead when they're alive. So I'll give an example. Someone once told me, and again, fact is always greater than fiction. Some stories you can just not make up. Someone tells me they go to synagogue Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and in certain synagogues, in order to go, you have to buy a ticket. You have to have a ticket to get in. Very good. So someone told me the more money you pay, the more money you pay, the closer you get to the air conditioning. So I said, very good. I said, why don't you take a portable air conditioner and bow down to it? They're like, that's very cynical. I said, but you just told me the more money you pay, the closer you get to the AC. Right now, people are going to, destroy me over here and say, you don't know what's in their heart. At least they came to synagogue. You're right. At least they came to synagogue. A lot of people don't come to synagogue, even during the high holy days. The Haggadah talks about 4 sons. Talks about a wise son, an evil son, a son doesn't know how to ask, and a simple son. There's a 5th son. You know what the 5th son is? He's the one who doesn't come to the Seder. So here you got people, okay, so if they go to synagogue, that is something. I'm not going to say it's not worth anything. It's something. Yeah? But if you're going to tell me the more money you pay, the closer you get to the AC, so you're just there for the AC. That's what it sounds like. Yeah? So a person like that, where are they holding in the world? So again, people say, you can't judge that. Okay. Right? You don't know what's going on deep in their heart. Maybe they're actually doing some level of repentance. Maybe it's true. But from the naked eye, it doesn't look like that. They don't keep kosher, they don't keep Shabbos, they don't keep very many other things. Why would I assume they're here for spiritual growth? So why are they there? Because their soul tells them to go to synagogue, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. But the younger generation, their soul ain't telling them that. You know how many people, Jewish people today, are unaffiliated? Thousands. I'm not saying they even belong to a bad synagogue. They don't belong to any synagogue. Nothing. They don't do anything. Yeah? That's the 5th son, right? Doesn't show up to the Seder. So people like that, totally spiritually cut off in this world. They have no connection. It's like trying to, you can try this at home, it won't work. But you can try it. It's like, a person has a Humvee. Yeah, or any type of car, doesn't really matter. Try and start it with a 9-volt. Ain't gonna happen, right? It's not gonna happen. So these people were spiritually dead, absolutely spiritually dead. It would take like a nuclear holocaust to wake them up. Yeah, but they're spiritually dead. The Rebbe says they're just lacking burial. Essentially, they're walking around, no different than animals in many ways, but spiritually they're dead, absolutely 100% dead. Remember one of my trips to the States? I used to go every year and a half. I spent about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And one time I was there, so the day before we left, people came and whatever. Someone says, can I ask you a question? I'm like, please, anything, that doesn't have to do with like sports or entertainment or like something real. So the person asked me a question about age of the universe and Torah. If they come together, they don't, or it's like a total contradiction. 2.5 weeks, one real question. Last time I was there a couple of years ago, I was there. Someone had asked me what I think that the Netanyahu government took over, and the right wing took over. Everything else, I don't know. Entertainment, sports, a lot of conversation about food, about what's going on here in Israel. I don't know. Other things, but nothing real, nothing seemingly real. So, right, we're saying these people, they're brain dead, right? They're spiritually dead. They are 100% spiritually dead. So that's what it means to be spiritually cut off, even living in this world. That's what it means, right? But he asked a very good question. Doesn't need me to agree. It's a good question. If someone is supposed to be spiritually cut off and they live past that age, so what happened to what happened to what the Torah says? They're supposed to be dead, right? They shouldn't be in this world. So why are they still alive? Well, he says you have to see how they live. And if you see how they live, you'll see that they're not really alive. They're just going through the motions. They look human. They do, human type things. But the reality is they're spiritually dead. That's what it means. So the question is, does your soul, in that case, when you go poof in my language, does that mean that the soul gets obliterated? Yes. God can obliterate the soul. God can keep the soul alive and just keep punishing it forever. Can do that. Gemara says by Titus, that's what it does. That's what he's going through, right? That they brought up his soul, and he wanted his ashes. He wanted to be burned after he died and have his ashes scattered over the seven seas. So the Gemara says, what does God do? What was his punishment? Or they ask him, what was his punishment? So he felt that if he scatters his ashes over the seven seas, God can't judge him. Right? God can't do anything to him because his ashes are scattered all over. So what does God do? What does God do? The Gemara says, every day, this is for eternity. Can't even imagine this. What does he do? He gathers all his ashes together because God can do that. He puts them back as he was, as a human body, and he burns them again. And he burns them again day in and day out for eternity. Can't imagine. Imagine, God brings the person back to life, glues them back together. Right? It's like, wow, I'm alive. Bam, burned again. He gets that being alive for like a split second and gets burned again. So why doesn't God obliterate him? Because that would be too easy of a punishment. God wants him to suffer. Now, that soul, even a non-Jewish soul, seemingly can keep getting obliterated, right? Or, can keep getting punished for eternity. But there's another level here. The other level is, no. If God wanted to, he could take that soul and just destroy it. Not bring it back. Not bring it back into a human body and burn it again. No, he's doing that because he's punishing it. That's his punishment, right? But would it have been easier to just destroy and utterly obliterate his soul? They don't have to worry about it. He's dead. He's finished. His soul is obliterated, finished, right? Now, most people are not that evil. Most people are not going to get their soul obliterated, right? There are some special people, yeah. That might happen to a vast majority, no. And even if people did horrific things, God's not necessarily going to obliterate them. He's going to punish them. He is absolutely going to punish them. Yeah. So in some ways, obliterating the soul is too good, right? It's too easy. They just die and that's it. The soul just goes poof. But again, most people are not that evil. They're definitely not that evil. Somebody asks, doesn't the rabbis not actually know the meanings? Oh, why add limitations? When Elijah and the Messiah prove what is proper, then they don't know exact meaning. Very good. Yeah, good question. So I'll tell you like this, that there is, if you go through the Gemara itself, yeah, there are a lot of discrepancies, a lot of disagreement of opinion. Right? It's very rare if you see a certain law that's brought down and nobody disagrees. Right? Nobody disagrees. Right? You see it, it's rare. There's a case where, if somebody's a guest at somebody's house for Shabbos, in grace after meals, there's a thing called Birkat Habayit, that the guest blesses the host. Yeah. Now the Gemara brings that down. The Gemara brings that down, and there is no disagreement there. There's no disagreement. Now, in a lot of benchers, that have Shabbos songs and grace after meals and other things in it, it's not there. The Gemara makes no distinction. The Gemara says that this is the obligation, this is what you say. Nobody argues, right? It's very rare, right? This is one case. Nobody argues. So why in a lot of benchers didn't make it in there? You don't see Birkat Habayit. It's not there. So many would say this is where the editors won over against the rabbis. The rabbis say you got to say it, right? Rabbis say it's in there for a reason, right? But why did it get taken out? But the editors took it out. Why did they take it out? Good question. But it should be there. Right? Now, there's the difference of opinion. The Gemara would be a lot easier to read if all it gave us was one opinion that we hold like. In other words, if you read the Mishnah, it says, Rabbi Yehuda said like this, Rabbi Meir said like that, someone else said like that. Then they go on to the next law. Yeah, whatever it may be. Why didn't you say the law is like Rabbi Meir against Rabbi Yehuda? Right? Or it depends on, if this is the case or that's the case or whatever. So there are a lot of times that you have to bring in other opinions in order to know what am I supposed to do in certain situations. Let's say I get a minority opinion. Let's say we got an opinion we don't know what to hold by. Yeah, according to Jewish law, according to halacha. We don't hold that way. Okay. Now, even if you don't hold that way, maybe under certain circumstances, I could rely on it. You have to know where, you have to know when, right? So there are opinions that, yeah, if a person needed a leniency, for whatever reason, let's say a permissible leniency, could rely on it 100%. Right? But if that opinion wasn't there, you wouldn't know that. But there are other opinions brought there that also come in for other things, not just the thing at hand. So we do have a hierarchy. We do have a hierarchy how we hold, but you got to remember one thing. It's not, of course, they didn't know what the meaning is. You got to remember as well when they are telling their reason why. Yeah, why they hold what they hold. Right? Let's say eating milk and meat. There are a number of opinions. How long you have to wait? In between. One says like this, one says like that. Someone says like, something else. But so how do we hold practically? Right? So now it depends. Today depends what community came from. Right? For most people, you're gonna hold 6 hours between meat and milk. Come from Germany, they hold 3 hours. Came from Amsterdam, they hold 1 hour. Right? Between, it depends. Right? But what's that dependent on? That's dependent on different opinions in the Gemara. But not only that, you have to remember as well, the rabbis did not give all their opinions. They didn't say that, they didn't give 150,000 different reasons why. They gave a handful of reasons. The Rambam, in his Moreh Nevuchim, the Guide for the Perplexed, he goes through a lot of the mitzvahs why we do them. But it's not an exhaustive list. There are certain things we do because God said it. We don't have a reason. Try and find reasons. Try and understand better. Right? That is for sure. But even if they gave 50 reasons, doesn't mean it's the reason. Because there's a difference of opinion. Let's say the rabbis gave a bunch of reasons for whatever mitzvah, and the reasons don't apply. Do we still do it or we don't do it? Do we keep it or we don't keep it? So there's a difference of opinion. Some would say if the reason doesn't apply, then seemingly you don't have to do it because the reason that it applied does not apply now. Others would say no. The fact that they gave reasons doesn't mean it's the reason. In other words, it could be 1,000 different reasons. They didn't tell you all the reasons. But since they didn't tell you all the reasons, so there's still what to learn from all the different opinions. 100%. There's still what to learn. Because they weren't interested, if you read the Jerusalem Talmud, which we don't really, according to Jewish law, we don't go like the Jerusalem Talmud. Yeah, Jerusalem Talmud there is very hard to go through. Why it's very hard to go through? Yeah, it does go through difference of opinion, but the language is very terse. Right? It's very, very terse. It's very hard to understand exactly, exactly what's being said. Right? Now, if we would only bring in one opinion, and we bring in the majority opinion, wouldn't some people say, aren't you suppressing what other people say? Maybe you'll tell me that. Maybe you say, we got to be all inclusive. We have to bring in their opinion, even if the halacha is not like them. Why? You got to give them freedom of speech, even if they're wrong. even if they're wrong. But even what a lot of what oral law is bringing in what they said, right? That's why it's supposed to be oral. All these different opinions, but they a lot of them have weight, even if they all have weight. The question is, do we hold like that or not? Sometimes the halach will be a hybrid. In other words, we're going to be straight. I was just learning something today that there's a difference of opinion. The difference of opinion, did this rabbi accept what this other rabbi said in a few different cases? Yeah. So there's a whole discrepancy. Imagine like this going on for like half a page. He did, he didn't. Maybe he referred to this, he referred to that, he referred to the other thing. There's a whole discussion. Yeah. So it comes out, I haven't got to the end yet, but it comes out, at least to what I've seen up until now. And one of the commentaries says, I have a discrepancy here. We're not sure if he did or not. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to be stringent according to both opinions. Now, if I didn't have that other opinion, I wouldn't know that. Right? So it's there for a reason. It's not just there, well, we just threw it together anyway. We want to be all inclusive. That's not necessarily the reason. Could be. Right? But there are other ramifications you had to bring it in for. And it's not only for that. You have to remember, the Torah is very vast, right? As King David says. Torah is very vast, very vast, wide as the sea, it's as great as the earth, etc. So there's a lot of information. There's a lot of information of how it all applies. Does it apply like this? Maybe in some cases. Does it apply like this? Maybe not. Right? There's a case, by Hanukkah. We'll speak about that later. But in Hanukkah, where do I light the menorah? Now, there was a custom, but it wasn't prevalent all over Israel to light outside. Very good. Where? By the door, by the window, somewhere else. And most people outside of Israel, just about everybody, I would say light inside. They all light inside. Why? Because of danger. Now, question is, what's the danger? The Ritva, one of the great commentators, Talmud, a student of the Rashba, right, 500-600 years ago, more, he says, like in France today, guess things haven't changed. Yeah, I don't know, put it up again, put it out your window, whatever. If you're going to smash it, right? It's anti-Semitism, right? It's still alive and well, unfortunately. So the question is, what if you live in a place not dangerous? You're not going to smash it down. The neighbors are civil. They're not going to, let's say they're not going to do that. It's very safe. Okay. Does that change anything? So Gemara doesn't answer. Gemara just says because of danger. Okay. So now you could ask, so oral law works now. So let's say you went inside because of danger. Very good. Where? Where does that apply? What if the danger doesn't exist? What if the danger doesn't exist anymore in that place? Or what if right now it's not dangerous, but years later it is? So what do? So commentaries try and answer. Maybe it's like this, maybe it's like that, back and forth, back and forth. Yeah, we hold like that. We don't know like this. It's a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy over here. Now, some opinions, some opinions we're not gonna, we're not gonna take, as seriously when it comes to Jewish law. Right? One of the opinions, the Miri. Miri lived in Italy. Now, people learn it, learn this commentary, but why does it not necessarily apply according to Jewish law? Right? Why is it not going to apply? So a lot of times it's not going to apply because, as many commentaries will say, the reason it doesn't apply is because he wasn't in contact with other rabbis that generation. He was on his own. And had he known what this other rabbi said, he wouldn't have said what he said. So, but these things you have to know. These things, there's a lot to learn, right? So, why add limitations? It depends. Some mitzvahs don't have limitations, right? They don't have limitations, right? I'll give you an example. A person buys a lulav, esrog, your lemon on steroids, right, for sukkahs. Is there a limit how much you can spend? You could buy a $200 esrog. Thing is beautiful. No splotches, no scratches, absolutely beautiful. You pay what you can afford, right? No limit on that. So there are certain things, that there are certain things more limited. Some other things, not. But you can't take it out of context because each mitzvah is its own thing, and it has to be learned. How it applies, when it applies, why it applies, right? So some things are much more expansive. You take tefillin, for example. The Torah says you have to put these frontlets on between your eyes and put them on your arm. Very good. We understand this tefillin. Torah does not tell me one thing about tefillin. Doesn't tell me they have to be black. Doesn't tell me what has to be written in them. There are hundreds and hundreds and thousands of laws. That's not limiting at all. A lot to know. Laws of Passover, extremely complex. Laws of Shabbos, extremely complex. Again, even within these laws, some are more limiting, only applies to certain things, other things much more expansive, depends, right? It definitely depends. It depends on, it's going to depend on the context, of what it is. To be more sure to avoid transgressing. There are a lot of laws in the laws of Shabbos and the laws of kashrus that the rabbis do not want you to transgress a more severe prohibition. So anything similar in the tabernacle was forbidden because you might forget it's Shabbos and it'll ruin your Shabbos. You won't enjoy Shabbos. So therefore, one of these things, even though they're not 100% identical, that what was done in the tabernacle, you might forget. So the Gemara states that clear, that they don't want you to come to a more severe prohibition. You forget. And you won't, you're doing all these other things. You won't enjoy Shabbos either. Someone asks, okay, part of that question. Part 3 is will Elijah the prophet, what are they going to do? What's he going to do? Is he going to prove what is proper? Yeah, he's going to make clear. What that the Messiah is there, who comes from whatever tribe, whoever survives, right? And when there are any doubts, sometimes the Gemara will say teku, right? Teku means that Elijah is going to come. He's going to answer. Teku means we're not sure what to do. Right? There are a number of times the Gemara will say teku, we don't know. You have to wait for Elijah to come and answer. So a number of things like that. So things that were not clear, even on the early commentators, later commentators, he's going to come and answer. Right? That is true. Then someone asked, are non-Jews allowed to go up there? Yes. Non-Jews allowed to go on the Temple Mount. Again, I would tell everybody, you come to Israel, go up the Temple Mount before you become a Jew. Someone asks, is there a lack of trust in Hashem? At some level. I would agree. But, there are a lot of different levels here. When you're going to see at the end of this week's Parsha, right, that by Yosef, he tells the wine steward, that he's going to be put back, in his rightful place. And he says, don't forget me. Don't forget me. So at the end of the Parsha, it says, he didn't remember him and he forgot him. What do you mean? If you didn't remember, he forgot him. Right? Why do you have to tell me twice? Right? So the answer is he got punished. He had to stay in this jail. I can't even imagine what this jail was like, thousands of years ago. Yeah, but he had to stay in this jail for another 2.5 years because on his level is the lack of emunah. The lack of emunah, bitachon, the lack of faith and belief in God. If any of us would have done it, not a problem. That's hishtadlus. That's putting your best foot forward. Beautiful. That's what you should do. You got to put your best foot forward. Yeah, on his level, that was too much. Right? That was putting too much forward on his level of emunah and bitachon. And he got punished for another 2.5 years. Another 2.5 years in jail. So it depends on the person. Depends on the person's level. But I would say there are a lot of things there are a lot of things that a person's got a lot of faith when everything's good. Like money in the bank, everything's good, health-wise, this, that. When a person has a trial and he has difficulty, then we see. No atheist in a foxhole. Yeah, then we see. Where's the person holding? That's why the person gets tested. One of the reasons. To see, are they really, are they just, saying the talk and, talking the talk and walking the walk, or they really live it, or they really believe it, right? They're two different things. Person can dress the right way, say the right things, all the, Yiddish sprach, they're going to use all these, yeshivish language and blah, 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 very good. They're not holding there. It's all for externals. Yeah, so where's their faith and belief? Faith and belief is when things are good. And things aren't good, then people start to ask questions. Someone asked, why is it closed on Shabbos? Good question. They don't want Jews going up there. Right? Bottom line is they don't want them going up there. So whether during the week or on Shabbos, they don't want them going up there. But they're not going to trust me, they're not going to let them pray on the Temple Mount on Shabbos. No question. A group to pray up there? No way. So maybe if they're lucky, which won't happen, create a war. But if they wanted to pray mincha, so forget Shachar, they wanted to pray the afternoon service or the evening service, they can 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, let's say, tops. Yeah, 20 minutes. They ain't letting you pray up there with 10 minutes. Ain't going to happen. Ain't going to happen because it's a provocation. So you told me it went up another day, was closed on Shabbos. Probably why it was closed. They don't want Jews going up there. Isn't saving a soul a mitzvah? Yeah, it is a mitzvah. Why not convince when given a clear opportunity? Again, is it? So let's ask $2 million question now, because now I just up the ante, and that is, what is the reason to draw somebody close? If you're telling me to draw a Jew close, I get it, because we're all, the only mitzvah to draw a Jew close is because we're all intertwined. Kol Yisrael Ravim said was that the Torah says, right? Or the Gemara says we're all intertwined. Doesn't say about non-Jews. Doesn't say I have an obligation to save a non-Jewish soul. Who says? People will say, and I've had this rammed down my throat a lot of times. People will say, but you're a light into nations. Okay. But what does that have to do with anything? Because we're a light into nations, I have to convince a non-Jew not to worship a cow. Why is that my responsibility? If they come to me, they want to learn, very good. Right? But who says it's my mitzvah to save a non-Jewish soul? A Jewish soul, I understand. Right? We're going to look out for our own first, 100%. Right? And everyone would do that. That's not just being racist. People are going to say, oh, that's racist. People are going to save their own first. They're not going to save someone else first. They're going to save their own first. Yeah, so why is it my mitzvah? You're going to have to prove to me why it's my mitzvah to save a non-Jewish soul. I understand. If they come to me, good. I should be looking for non-Jewish souls to save. Well, I'll ask like this. If I had a whole bunch of Jews to teach, and a non-Jew, who am I going to teach first? Jews. They're the ones keeping the Torah, right? Non-Jews have to keep the Noahide laws. Very good. Very true. They have to know what to do. Someone should teach them. Absolutely. But who's going to come first? You can say it's a racist thing. It's not fair. But that's the reality. Jews are the chosen nation, not non-Jews. Non-Jews need to know what to do. They need to be educated. True. Even if they don't convert, 100%. 100%. But it's not my mitzvah to reach out to them, to save them. It's not my mitzvah. Non-Jews want to do it. Okay. It's not obligated. But they can. They want to try and convince family to be Noahide. Okay. Probably not going to listen. But, a person can do it, but it's, there's no mitzvah to save a non-Jewish soul. It's not. There's just no mitzvah. You have to remember, if you're telling me there are a lot of laws that's complex, they wouldn't know what to do, this and that, very good. So they have to be taught properly. But, the 7 Noahide laws are an umbrella. right? About 50, 60 laws, let's say, altogether, right? But these laws are universal according to the Torah. If they're universal according to the Torah, right? Let's make very clear. I have to run after non-Jews to say don't steal. Don't, put up signs all over churches. Don't commit adultery. Right? Yeah, walk in the church, which would be forbidden. Convincing people how they have to be moral. Isn't that obvious? We're going to see that in the next chapter. All about immorality. Spend weeks all about immorality. Yeah, stay tuned. Very good. I have to convince a non-Jew to be moral. To run after them to be moral, otherwise they're in serious trouble. They commit adultery, other things. Yeah, for a non-Jew, adultery is forbidden. Forbidden relationships. Liable for death penalty. Not all the no-hide laws are liable for death penalty. I should, where there, there's a bar in every corner where a church is, right? So I should put up signs in the bar, outside the bar. They put signs on me up there. Tar and feather me. Why not? Right? Not a good idea, but why not? It's not my job. I have to convince someone, something's off. Don't steal from the IRS. Make a whole campaign. Well, how it defunds the country and why they need the money and whatever. And so you have to pay them whatever you owe them. Very good. I have to convince someone why that's a problem. I have to convince, every Joe Schmo that you don't have to do that. Why is that my job? You know how many Jews don't know the Aleph Beis? They don't know Shema Yisrael. It's a lot more serious. That they someone at the IRS deserves to be paid if they deserve to be paid. Yeah. Well, more important. Doesn't mean they don't have to be educated. They don't have to be dealt with. I'm not saying not. Right? Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. They need to be educated. But I have to run after people to educate them on things that are obvious. Make law courts. That's the whole discussion we had. The Shabbos table yesterday. Yeah. Why does Shechem and Hamor and everybody in that city, why they all get destroyed? A lot of different reasons. But everybody knew what Shechem did to Dinah. Everybody knows. They didn't turn him in. So he was liable, many say, he's liable for a death penalty. And the whole city is liable for a death penalty because of the laws of Dinah. The laws of setting up law courts. They didn't bring him in. Now he's the prince, he's the prince, he's in charge of this and that. Maybe they were afraid to. Doesn't matter. Everybody knew. So if everybody knows what happened in law courts, or what happened in Mickey Mouse courts, whatever. But let's say they had real law courts. They could have taken him in. 100% they could have taken him in. Beating him, with the wet noodle. I don't know. Whatever. Liable for death penalty. Let's say. So why didn't they do it? So you can tell me they were afraid. It doesn't matter. One of the no-hide laws is law courts. You got to have proper law courts. And if you know someone did something, you got to turn them in. The whole city knew. The whole city knew what this scumbag did. They all know what he did. And they all looked the other way. So what's the punishment? Death penalty. Now, the question on that is, why did Yaakov complain? Yaakov says, you can't just do that because the nations around are going to look at us bad. We're going to try and attack us because of what we did. You made us, you made the Jewish people look bad. Now, their answer is what? Our daughter should be treated like a harlot? That was the answer. That was their answer. But how can we stand around? How can we stand around and let this happen? Good question. But what about law courts? They could have told Yaakov, listen, they were Chai Mesa. They're liable for death penalty. Everybody looked the other way. How can they look the other way? You're guilty by association. Which is another topic we're not going to get into, but it's a much bigger topic. You're there. You know what happened. You turn them in. You have an obligation according to the Torah to turn them in. He's the prince of the tribe. He's the prince. He's the head. So what? You got an obligation to turn him in. So the whole community knows what he did. They absolutely know what he did. So what happened? What happened? Liable. The whole community is liable for no-hide laws. Now, isn't that obvious? That's why you have law courts. You try people. disagreements. You got to bring them to a law court. If you don't do that, it's chaos. So again, now, I have to tell people this. I have to be all over YouTube and whatever, begging non-Jews, Christians, Muslims, who knows what, Buddhists and whatever, convince them to keep their laws. Mitzvah for me to save them? Who says? Not my mitzvah. This is obvious. Now, you're going to say, how are they ever going to learn if they don't learn? If they don't learn from the right people, good. But what did we say before? The Gemara says you want to go in the right path, God will help you. You don't want to go in the right path, God won't stop you. I have to go convincing things of, I have to convince people of things that are obvious? Who says? Who says? Not my obligation. Not even a non-Jew's obligation. Person wants to do it. They want to try and bring their family back. Good. I don't think it's going to help, but let's say, is there a mitzvah doing so? I don't think so. Might be a nice thing, but it's not a mitzvah to do so. You're going to say, but they're going to be lost, right? Is that your fault? Or is it your fault? I would say for a Jew, it's a bigger question. Because all Jews are intertwined. Because all Jews are intertwined is a problem. You ever see any non-Jews intertwined with each other? Imagine Brooklyn, someone, an Italian in Brooklyn did something wrong, right? Imagine. He did something egregious. What do they say? Burn down Italy? No more cannolis. It's over. It's over. What do you mean? Don't ever say that. Never. By Jews, one Jew does something wrong, everyone gets punished. Collective punishment. You don't say that by non-Jews. Non-Jews are not intertwined among themselves. Jews are. Jews are the only ones that are. So we got to be very careful. Anything we do. Let me see the question here I want to get to before. Somebody asks, can a Jew be allowed to live his life without having a wife? Oh, good question. So we hold, practically speaking, certainly for a woman, better be married than not married. But doesn't mean just have to marry anyone for the sake of being married. But for a person, they have to have their, to find their other soul, other half of the soul, so to speak. So could you live a fulfilled life without being married? In theory, you could be fulfilled, but you're missing your other half of the soul, right? So it doesn't mean you can't be kept busy and do other things, but at the same time, if you didn't get married, okay, you didn't get married, right? But are you going to be totally fulfilled? The answer is no, because you have to have your other half, your other spiritual half. Now, the Matrix, imagine 7 or 6 out of 10 Jews intermarry, right? So now you have 2 halves of the soul that are not connected. What happened to that other half of soul? They didn't marry who they're supposed to marry. Their kids they were probably supposed to have, they never had. Now, if you do that once, go down 3-4 generations, that's like a mess. That's an absolute mess. Where did the other half of the souls go? What are they doing? What happened to these souls that are supposed to come out with these 2 people? God goes to plan C, D, E, F, G. They ask, what's God busy doing? He's making shidduchim, right? He's making matches between men and women. It keeps them busy. But if you have one person that intermarries, one messes things up for hundreds, thousands of people throughout the generations. So imagine now multiply that by 7 or 6. And it's horrific. Absolutely horrific. Now, does that mean a person can never find, tranquility? You can find some level of tranquility, but you're missing your other half. That's what we hold. You're missing your other half. So you got to go out and find your other half. Now, let's say a person says, I was married, I was divorced, I don't want any part of it, whatever. All right. But you're still missing your other half. Right? So you could have a fulfilling life, but it won't be as fulfilling if you don't have the other half. Somebody asked, do all souls who are up to the 6 levels of Gehenna get out when Mashiach comes? I'm not answering that. I'll tell you one thing. It's a good thing you know such a thing. There are different levels of Gehenna, there are different levels of hell. When you get out, you don't get out, don't worry about it. Do not get out of it. It's not something you should worry about. I know there are people who speak about it, but I don't know why that helps people. It just scares them. Yeah. Someone does a great job, a certain level of hell you don't get out of. I asked the Kabbalist this. Rabbi Miner was a big Kabbalist. Yeah, he says it's very hard to get out of a certain level. Certain level of Ganem if he does great jobs. Even with repentance. Very hard. But he said he was holding according to Kabbalah anyway. And why does that help? Well, again, some people say it scares people. It's good. It scares them. If you know you're not going to get out of the 6th level of hell or the 3rd level, it's going to take so much to get you out. You're going to be happy knowing that? It's going to make you more righteous now, make you, some people maybe scare the wits out of them. They'll do whatever it takes. Other people are just going to say they'll give up. I know people like that. They say, why should I bother? I'm never going to get out. But someone very much steeped in Kabbalah, Rabbi, I was very much steeped in Kabbalah. It's like, who's holding there anyway? And why are you worried about it? Yeah, you know such a thing exists. Beautiful. Move on. Yeah, not something to concern yourself with. Other people speak about it a lot. True. So I don't speak about it. I don't know if it helps people. Maybe some people it does. I'm not going to say not. Maybe it does. You need fear. Fear doesn't necessarily need the love of God. Love of God will lead to fear of God. But you need fear. I agree. 100%. But sometimes the person gets scared out of their wits too much. They won't do anything. It won't motivate them. They say, I'm never going to get out of this level of hell. I had somebody like this. They said, I'll never get out of this level of hell. Okay. So then why are you listening to this person? No, but it's really inspiring. But you don't even get out of bed to pray as a Jew. You're totally devastated by it. You barely want to keep any other mitzvahs. No, but it's inspirational. I don't know, it doesn't sound so inspirational. For some people that it is great. They're going to work very hard and whatever. It's going to cause them to repent. Beautiful. Other people are going to get destroyed by it. No mitzvah to be destroyed by it. Somebody asks, coming up to Hanukkah, the Maccabees like Yaakov try to appease their enemy. Okay. But we're also prepared to fight, right? So when do you realize that appeasement is over? So I'll tell you the story. There are, this week's parsha we just read, Parshas Vayishla. Rashi there at the beginning says, Yaakov's confronted by Esav, 400 people. What's the first thing he tried to do? Bribe. What do you see? Esav can be bribed, right? Bribed. If that doesn't work, what do? You pray. If that doesn't work, and you see that nothing else is working, then you go to war. Going to war is the last resort. You're going to say, but I have to be prepared. You're right. You got to be prepared for war, but that's not the first thing you do. Right? They felt, what the Maccabees do, they fought. Because they saw appeasement wasn't going to work. They stuck a pig in the temple, on the altar. Doesn't sound like someone you can reason with. No, you don't understand. You got to know what Judaism is. You got to know what Jews are. We're going to have you for Shabbos. We'll give you some chicken, some nice gefilte fish. Beautiful. There's no one to talk to. So there's no one to talk to. You pray. If you see prayer's not going, which in this case it wasn't going to go, right? That's, the Greeks are not just going to leave by themselves, then you have to fight. Right? Again, fighting's the last resort. If the other two don't work, then you fight. But again, you have to know the case. You have to know, you have to know when and where. There aren't, I wouldn't say there are clear-cut parameters here. There are certain things, fighting doesn't mean physical. There's a case where they wanted to teach, Polish in Jewish schools, only for like an hour a day. So the Chofetz Chaim came himself, the whole entourage. The Chofetz Chaim didn't speak Polish, right? So, or it's Russian. I think they wanted to speak Russian or whatever. And he went in front of the court, and all he did was cry. All he did was cry and spoke Yiddish. They didn't understand a word he said. But the magistrate saw that it was such an important thing that, he got rid of the decree. Totally got rid of the decree. So yeah, there are times you have to fight. There are times you have to, you have to appease. You have to see. There's a case of the Chofetz Chaim. I mentioned this story because it's a famous story. He sent somebody. There was a bad decree against Jewish people, so he sent one of his students, and he told him to go bribe the king. He goes, gather a lot of money together, go bribe the king, and get this decree annulled. He's like, he's going to kill me. It's like, don't worry, just go. So he went. He says, I come in the name of the Jewish people. We want this, decree annulled, blah, blah, blah. King looks at him, and he shows him all, the money, whatever. He says, I could have you killed. Get out of here. Who do you think you are? And he runs off. Goes back to Chofetz Chaim. The Chofetz Chaim tells him, you didn't bribe him enough. Give him a ton of money. I told you. Give him a ton of money. So I can't go there. He's going to kill me. He said, just go and do what I told you to do. So he goes. Same thing. King said, what are you doing here? I could have you killed. And he said, I want this decree annulled. And he shows even a bag 2-3 times size before. Gold, money, jewels, all this stuff. King looks at it, says, get out of here. I'm going to have you killed. Next time you come here, I'm going to have you killed on the spot. And he runs out. So he says, tells the Chofetz Chaim, I'm not going back. I did what you told me to do. It didn't work. I'm not going back. Chofetz Chaim said, I told you to give him a lot of money. Bring 5 times the amount that you had, put it in front of the king, and tell him to annul the decree. He said, I'm not going back. Chofetz Chaim told him to go. Finally, he goes. King says, oh, you again, I can have you killed on the spot. He says, I come in the name of the Jewish people. I want this, I want this decree annulled. And he takes his suitcase and 20 sacks, gold, silver, jewelry, whatever, puts it on the table. The table almost breaks. King looks at the money, looks at the guy, looks at the money, looks at the guy. He says, all right, no problem. And he writes out a royal decree. We're going to annul the decree, and that's it. Right? Very good. Have a nice day. Came back to the Chofetz Chaim ecstatic. You'll never believe what happened. I brought, all this money, 10 times the amount, whatever. He says, Rebbe, how'd you know? He said, what do you mean? It's very simple. What did Yaakov do when he came to Esav? What's the first thing he did? Bribe. Esav can be bribed. And when he came back and he said he didn't take the bribe, obviously he didn't give him enough. Because Esav can be bribed. You see it in the courts all the time. Right? That's what happens. People can get bribed. But Esav can be bribed. So if it's going to come out well, hopefully, use appeasement, bribes. That works. I went to Egypt back in the day, many, many years ago. Everything you want to go here, do this, you bribe someone. That's the way it works. In some countries, that's the way it is. You want something done, you got to bribe them. Very good. That's the way it works. And if you can't do that, then you go to prayer. Prayer doesn't work. Yeah, then you have to fight. Again, fighting is the last option. It's the last option. But, in general, I would say it depends on the case. Absolutely depends on the case. What it is. When that is. Somebody asks, aren't missionaries pretty much the exact same as a pursuer? In fact, they convinced them that endeavors are pointless. We can stop so many uneducated Jews from pursuing idolatry. Yeah. They might have this, they might have the status of pursuers, maybe. But in that case, you do whatever you can to fight them. That doesn't mean kill them, right? You won't be able to kill them, per se, even though technically a non-Jew, if you see a non-Jew, if a Jew, let's say better, if a Jew would see a non-Jew bowing down to an idol, look around, there's nobody there, kill him on the spot. On the spot. It's one of no idol laws. Are liable for death penalty. Right? So, even if you know they're a Christian, you can't do anything to them until they do something. Right? Until they do something. So they're not necessarily a pursuer. I would say they're annoying and they're preying on people that don't know anything. But a lot of times, how do they get Jews? Sometimes they might even get religious Jews because of their arguments. Sometimes, right? It's very rare. But who do they prey on? They prey on, you're right, they prey on people who don't know anything. True. But they also prey on people that don't have money, that are suffering that way. So what do? They say, listen, we can help you. You're months behind on your rent. We can take care of that. We want you to believe in JC. So they're not necessarily thinking straight. Who knows what? They're in dire straits. They help them out. A lot of times that's what happens. They do prey, again, you're right. They do prey on people that don't know anything. Right? That is true. But they prey on people that also have no money, and that are suffering in that way. So they come as a salvation. Because everybody knows the church got plenty of money. right? They got plenty of money. They're not, they got special coffers for, for missionizing against Jews. And I just read an article the other day about, a lot of missionaries in this country, in Israel, a lot of missionaries. They prey on people don't know anything, true, and people don't have money, right? Usually both goes hand in hand. Are they a pursuer? Might be a mitzvah to beat them up and take care of them. Very well could be. But I wouldn't say they're a pursuer in the sense, of going up on Temple Mount. I think that's more. It's more. I think it's more drastic. I think it's a lot more drastic. But yeah, there is a mitzvah to stop them, 100%. There is definitely a mitzvah to stop them. When I call it necessarily a status of a road day, maybe could be. Could be. I have to think about it more. But you gotta be careful also that even if you do something, that's also could be a desecration of God's name, even if they deserve it, right? Even if they deserve it. But there are stories there where you get priests or whatever, and some people spit on them and other things, and it's not good in the news. Definitely not good in the news, even if they deserve it. But just because they deserve it doesn't necessarily mean you should do it. If there be a way where a person would never get caught and this and that, if you knew 100% there's no possible way they'll never get you, there's that, maybe. But to the extent where they're going to take a person and make them idolaters, yeah, it's pretty severe prohibition. Pretty severe prohibition. So yeah, it could be they would have that status. I gotta think about it more. But that very well could be. Somebody asks, what are the 7 names of the Yetzer Hara? It's called the angel of death. It's called the evil inclination. Not sure even myself what exactly all the names are. Let's see. Let's see, 1 second. One name is called I'm circumcised. One name is David called it impure. King David called it impure. Solomon called it enemy, impure enemy. What do you call it? The foreskin, uncircumcised. Sorry. Isaiah called it the stumbling block. It's another name. Ezekiel called it a stone. Yoel called it hidden. Anything else? Any other names here? I guess those are the names. That was one question. Next question was, what's 5 names of Jerusalem? 1 is Sion. What about the rest? Good question. One is called the City of Truth. Ir HaEmet, Kiryat Nemona, faithful city. Kiryat Aliza, joyful city. Gal Chizayon, valley of vision. And Ariel, the lion of God. Yeah, those are some of the names. Somebody asked where the fossil fuels come from. Don't know. That I'm not sure. Genoites use Mass on Purim? Well, again, I answered that question before, and the answer doesn't really apply to them, right? It doesn't apply to them. Why would they wear masks? That's what I would say. Somebody asks, but isn't allowing others to decide for themselves part of their free will? You're right. A Jew has an obligation to keep Torah mitzvahs. Now they could get deluded, for any number of reasons why they don't want to, why they think it doesn't apply. So it's a mitzvah to try and draw them close, right? It's a mitzvah to try and convince them. Yeah, but it's kind of like the Rambam says. The Rambam says that if a male does not want to give his wife, guy doesn't want to give his wife a bill of divorce. Yeah, he's able to, basically beat him up to an inch of his life in order that he'll give it. Now, you have to make sure it's not forced. If he's forced into it, then we hold it's forbidden. But why? Why allowed to beat him an inch of his life? Because he really wants to do the right thing, right? He really wants to do the right thing. His evil inclination takes him away, right? So his evil inclination takes him away. Now, doesn't his evil inclination allow him to have free will? He's got free will, but he gets convinced, right? He gets convinced. So God wants the Jewish people to do what he says. So someone never learns. They have free will to choose to do what they want to do. They can choose to have a ham sandwich. They can choose to desecrate Shabbos. They can choose to marry a non-Jew. They can choose whatever they want. All the convincing in the world may help, may not help, right? But everyone has free will, 100%. For a non-Jew, it's harder because for a non-Jew, these things are obvious, right? If he has free will to choose to either believe in it or not believe in it. But, you have so many Christians and so many others believe in things that don't make any sense. They're not making any logical sense, right? So, where's their free will? We try to convince them. They have free will. Everyone's got free will. No one denies that. Everyone has free will. All right? The question is what they use it for. Tell me what they use it for. Someone here mentions any Jew that leaves is responsible, right? So combating that with a group that wishes to destroy Judaism, that's another issue, right? That's another issue. Groups that, let's say, even Jewish groups. You could have Jewish groups that want to convince Jews, religious Jews, not to be religious, right? So you have to fight against them. That's dangerous, 100%. Missionaries are dangerous, true. Again, I'm not saying it makes them a rodent. Maybe it doesn't make them a rodent, but you have to, work hard to fight against it. The fact they mislead people, right? That's for sure is true, right? That is, there's a collective responsibility, right? Some say that working with a secular Jew, trying to bring them back has the status of a Shavas Aved. It's like you're returning, literally, it's like returning a lost object. What's the lost object? Their soul. You're giving them their soul back, so to speak. So there is collective responsibility, 100%. But you got to remember, you can't be a vigilante. You can't just do whatever you want. It has to be within certain parameters. But yeah, if they're trying, if a person has the ability to fight against these people, sure. What do you think Rabbi Singer does? Rabbi Skobach does? They fight against, they do counter missionary work. People and experts in that, very good, right? Now, if you have that knowledge, you should do that. Maybe at some point. But first, you got to get grounded in Torah before you do that. But if someone had, that knowledge and they could do that, and you're helping people, you're saving Jews that way, sure. That's a big thing. But, Ori Zohar, blessed memory, probably one of the most famous Bali Tshuva, one of the most famous returnees to Judaism, was a famous actor. Famous Israeli actor that, became religious. And they hid him away for years. And all he wanted to do was sit and learn. But eventually, an organization came to him and that they were doing, Jewish outreach and counter missionary work and, and other things. And great rabbis told him he had a responsibility, to the Jewish people to help because they had, certain unique character traits and knowledge that other people didn't have. Yeah. But they hid him away for years. They hid him away so he could learn. He might have been successful after a few weeks, after a few months, whatever, to jump into the cause, but you got to be grounded. It's one of the things my Rebbe taught me, banged into my head, that you want to go save the world. That's beautiful, but if you have money and you can sit and learn, get the knowledge, just go through everything, just get the knowledge. He's right, because it can be much more effective with much greater knowledge. Doesn't mean you won't necessarily be effective with lesser knowledge. It can also be effective, right? Answering certain questions and this and that, right? But imagine if you had certain levels of knowledge. So then you bring in all kinds of other things that makes you much stronger. It definitely makes you, definitely much stronger. He didn't tell me, though, like at a certain age, looking for a job is going to be harder because I got all these qualifications. And I sat in a rabbinical court for 5 years. My Rebbe, no one wanted to pay anything. And people want to take people that, were much younger, went behind the ears. They wanted someone to overshadow them and, whatever. But, having certain, different level of knowledge, is a big thing because, one of the reasons I'm not a religious Zionist today is because, when I was potentially studying or going to study for rabbinic ordination, I saw people just, you learn a little bit about Shabbos, a little bit about this, a little bit about that, but you don't finish anything. You don't complete anything. Now, doesn't mean you don't have the requisite knowledge to pass the exam, right? Maybe you will, maybe you won't, whatever it is. But you got to remember, even if someone's a rabbi of a synagogue, doesn't mean you know everything by any stretch. It doesn't mean that. But one of the things I was most afraid of is I would never finish anything. And it was a good fear. It was a very good fear. Not everyone has the ability to sit and learn exponentially for a number of years. True. That's why, people end up going out and, getting jobs and doing other things and whatever, okay. But it's not the, and I've spoken about this a lot, I don't want to get sidetracked, right? But, in rabbinic ordination, not all what it's cut up to be. It means, you learned, a bunch of things, you pass certain exams, okay. Now, does that make you a rabbinic scholar and everything? No, doesn't mean that, right? And usually, a person, let's say, if they got rabbinic ordination, the laws of Shabbos, they shouldn't answer questions about kashrus, other things, right? Unless they really know, really, unless they really know. But, I've seen what some people that I went to yeshiva with, are doing, and, God should have mercy on them. That's all, that's all I'm going to say. God should have mercy on them. They learn a little bit here, a little bit there. Hopefully they're learning a lot. They're going through everything they need to go through. But, I don't see that the case. I see a lot of people doing very, as English would say, very dodgy things, to say the least. Somebody asked, just everyone Derech Hashem, very good. Ultimate goal of creation. Same time, he wants us to be like him, to be God. Well, we're not God, right? God's the ultimate giver and cannot receive. Okay. God is a mighty. He says that in the Path of the Just, in the introduction. God wants to give him his goodness, but he wants us to be attached to him. God's infinite. You can't attach to him. It's a good question. You can't attach to him. It's impossible. How can you attach to God? By doing what he says. By keeping his mitzvahs. God's the ultimate giver. That means he has no needs. So we also have to give. We also have to help others. But he's giving to us. He brought the Torah to the world. Passed it on to Moses, gave it to us. Right? So how do we interact with the Torah? What do we keep? How do we do it? Right? So we have to keep what he says. But we're not God. He's not expecting us to be like him. We can't be like him. Both of us said at the very beginning, no one's ever going to know God's essence. It's like Moses asked God, I want to see your face. God says, no one can see my face and live. Nobody's God. You can't know his essence. You can never know his essence. Right? He gave of his goodness. So how do I tap in? How do I tap in to be like God, so to speak? By doing what he says. By keeping the mitzvahs that he tells us to keep. And trying to be the best we can be on all levels. Right? That's what it means. Guilt and humiliation in Olam Haba. Yeah, let me ask you. I'll tell you like this. A soul, when it gets judged, what happens? First, it sees its life flash before its eyes. Sees everything it does, or it did in this world. And what happens? So he sees every last thing he did, every last thing that that he thought in his life. Now, if a soul's in that world, let's say, and understands that world is absolute truth. If that world is absolute truth, now again, it's going to be hard to understand, right? In our language. But if a person knows absolute truth, how awful are they going to feel for what they've done? How embarrassed are they going to be? We're going to say, how can a soul be embarrassed? Right? But, when a person dies, the essence of the person doesn't die. The body does, not the essence of the person. So the essence of a person at that point knows absolute truth. Now he knows 100% absolute truth. What are all the things he did wrong? So imagine a person got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. Well, they got 150,000 reasons why the hand was in the cookie jar, but he got caught red-handed. Is the person embarrassed? They're embarrassed. Now multiply that embarrassment. Now you're in front of the King of Kings, who knows every last thing, every last thought, every last thing you've ever done. If your essence is the same, it just transforms into a spiritual, a spiritual essence without a body. And it understands that, and you don't change, so to speak. You just change in form a little bit. I can't even imagine what the embarrassment of that is. Can't imagine, right? So that's part of what Gehenna is. Not just the fire that the person feels. Part of the transformation of fixing the soul up is the guilt. That's part of atonement. Not the hefty price to pay. Nobody wants to get embarrassed there. Imagine the worst embarrassment someone could feel in this world, whatever that is. Whatever that embarrassment is. Imagine what it is. Imagine what it is. Now, if you're in front of the absolute ruler of the world, imagine how much worse that embarrassment is as a pure soul. How that works, I can't answer. I'm just saying the manifestation of who the person is in that world. So your thoughts are still your thoughts. You are who you are, I guess, as a spiritual being. Very good. Imagine you did terrible things. And now you have to answer. So imagine one of the worst things the person could have done in this world. Got caught red-handed, whatever it is. And but you go in front of the King of Kings. Imagine how much worse that embarrassment is. How do you put it in physical terms as a soul? Good question. Right? This Kabbalah, we don't discuss Kabbalah here, but that's Kabbalistic question, how the soul actually feels. But that's what it's like. That's why I'd say that's what it's like. Somebody asked, does the Torah say for the Levite to have clean attire? Right. But also wouldn't that include anyone for temple service? Again, the Kohen who serves also has to be impeccable. Right? But you gotta understand though, when they serve and their garments get dirty because blood's spurting all over the place and all these other things, that's part of the job. Yeah, so you can't say, well, their clothes are dirty. Yeah, but that's part of the work. A person works as a tanner, disgusting smells, disgusting job, whatever. Your clothes stink to high heaven, but it's part of the job. Right? Kohen, same thing. But if he goes outside after serving, right, and he looks like a schlep in my language, yeah, that's a problem. A rabbinic scholar, not even on such a high level, has a spot in their shirt, they walk outside, and be liable for death penalty. Death penalty, you say, you have to be impeccable at everyone's level. Can't look like a slob, right? At everyone's level. But why so severe? Because you represent the Torah. Imagine took out a Torah scroll, it's got splotches all over it. It's got spaghetti stains, I don't know. It's got all kinds of, God forbid, other stains on it. You're not going to look at the Torah scroll the same. You're not going to look at it the same. You brought the Torah scroll down to like multiple levels. It's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. You tell me you're outside, you spill something, can't change. One thing. You went out that way? I told the story 2 weeks ago, or last week. I was taking a class by somebody. The rabbi wasn't there, so someone else took over. This guy looked like absolutely a schlep in my language. Totally disabled. Yeah, I couldn't take a word this person said seriously. Could have been greater rabbinic scholar than I'll be in 10 lifetimes. Other than that, one thing has nothing to do with another. I'm not, so big on externals, but you can't look like a slop. I know someone gave, gave a class, whatever. It's in a t-shirt. How can you wear a t-shirt? I'm not saying you have to wear a suit and a tie, per se, necessarily. Depends who you are. You're doing something live, you're wearing a t-shirt? Really? How can you take someone that, seriously? Well, he's very chilled. He's very chilled. Okay. But is someone going to lose like some level of respect because it was, I'm not saying he's got spots on his shirt. Doesn't have those spots on his shirt. Right? Not saying that. Yeah. Doesn't show respect for himself. If you represent the Torah, you can't look like a schlep in my language. Someone asks, as well as the idea of touching our wife on her menstruation. Yes, transfer of uncleanliness. No, you can't touch her, right? You can't touch her because of what it might lead to. Yeah, even during that time of the month, very good. But if she touches something, now again, we're not on the same level of impurity as during the time of the temple. It would seem to me, if someone's married during that time, such a high level of purity and impurity, she'd have to live in her own house. Because everything she sits on, everything she touches becomes impure. That doesn't apply today. Right? But that's not the reason you don't touch her. That the level of impurity doesn't transfer. That for sure does not transfer, not today. Back in time of the temple, maybe, but not today. That level does not transfer. Right? That doesn't transfer. He doesn't have to go to the mikveh for that. Now, he can't touch her because it's an extra restriction, because it might draw him close. And if it draws him close, other things will happen. That's the reason. It has nothing to do with purity and impurity here. That, he's going to get the spiritual cooties, whatever, that she's going to touch him. That's not the problem. The problem is what it's going to lead to. We don't have that level of spiritual impurity today that applied once in the temple. We don't have that. I had somebody once tell me we should go back to that. I said, it's a great idea. There's only one problem. That we don't have a temple today. Everyone agrees we don't have a temple today. You only have the western wall. Very good. It's only the outer wall. Awesome. It's only the outer wall. So do the levels of purity and impurity apply today like they did back then? No. That certain levels of impurity can't take off. We hold that a woman going to the mikveh after 2 weeks or whatever is going to take off that level of impurity to be with her husband. Okay. But there are other levels of impurity. It doesn't take off. Doesn't mean he can't be with her. They're totally two different things. But that level of impurity we don't have anyway. No, that's why you can't go in the temple mount. Right? Forget a woman. A guy cannot go in the temple mount for that reason. Because we don't have the same level of purity. There's no way to make yourself more pure. You can sit in the mikveh for a month. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help you. You don't have that level. For a woman, it's a different issue. It's a good question why she can become pure and be with her husband after 2 weeks. That's a good question. Yeah, but if she touches him, he doesn't have to go to the mikveh. And even if he would on a Torah level, it wouldn't help him today anyway. Mikveh wouldn't help. Right? So we don't have that level of purity and impurity. So things about deduction from cross-examination, how about the sages? Okay. But again, he'd have to clean himself in a mikveh in such a case. No. Or any attire, any clothing that was touched by his wife. Again, in the time of the temple, that's true. Not today. It doesn't apply today. Seems a lot of deduction from cross-examination. When you really learn, I'll just put it to you this way. When you really learn, after you're Jewish, and one day I might do that, set up a class, teach people how to learn. Teach people how to learn Gemara. Very good. You'll see how deduction works. You'll see how it works and how they learn things out. And then you're going to be very surprised because when you ask, you think about this question now, right? Write it down. Write the question down now. And then whenever you're going to really learn how to learn, right, i.e. learning Gemara, you're going to see. You're going to see where deduction comes from. You're going to see where their logic is. And sometimes not so easy to see their logic. Right? But you'll see it in a much clearer way, by, when a person comes to real learning. Someone asked, what about Musaf offerings on Shabbos? So they're allowed to desecrate Shabbos for the sake of sacrifice. That was permissible. That was definitely permissible. And on festivals, same thing. An ordinary person on Shabbos can't do that. Right? I mean, unless you were starving, you had no choice. Right? To ritually slaughter an animal. But in general, you can't do that. But a Kohen's different. Kohen's different. Again, it's God ordained that we should do this. We should have a Musaf offering, right? An extra offering on Shabbos. Very good. But it's desecration Shabbos. Obviously, God permits it. God says permissible. But it's not saving a life. You're right. It's not saving a life. It doesn't matter. The fact is, it supersedes Shabbos. That you'd be allowed to do. And what about bris milah? Circumcision. Let's say a woman gave birth on Shabbos. So 8 days from Shabbos is Shabbos. You say, I can't desecrate Shabbos. Not true. If the 8th day comes out on Shabbos, you do the circumcision on Shabbos. Right? There's certain limitations. Okay, when you're allowed to take the knife and this and that, but you're obligated to do it because that's the 8th day. You don't push it off. If the baby was, let's say the baby was sick, baby had jaundice, right? Let's say. So you have to wait till the baby's healthier. Okay. Now let's say when the first day to do it is on Shabbos, you don't do it on Shabbos. That you don't do it on Shabbos. Right? But you would, if the 8th day comes out on Shabbos, you have to do it on Shabbos. That's the command. You have to do it on Shabbos. Desecrating Shabbos to a certain level for that, true. But not all things we allow that for. Circumcision we allow that for. We don't allow it for blowing the shofar. If blowing the shofar comes out on Shabbos, you don't do it. Right? We're afraid you're going to take it in public and then learn how to blow it and you'll carry when there's no eruv. Right? But, same thing by reading the Book of Esther. Right? Certain things, Shabbos comes first. In certain cases, it doesn't. Right? It depends. Let's say Yom Kippur comes out on Shabbos, like this year. Yom Kippur comes out on Shabbos. What do? You fast. The only fast they really can come out on Shabbos. But you fast. Supersedes Shabbos. So you have to know what supersedes, what doesn't. But Musaf supersedes Shabbos. So it says they don't care about any of the other rules, right? Right? That is true. What happens if everyone converts to be Orthodox? Noahide before the Messiah and maintain that status. Yeah. Who, if anyone, would be lost? Who says anyone would be lost? The ones that repent, Jews that repent, hopefully will survive. If they don't repent, and any non-Jew involved in idolatry, they're toast. Seemingly, they're going to be toast. Noahides should survive. Right? Bottom line, either going to look like an Orthodox Jew or you're going to stay a Noahide. That's how you survive. Anyone else, my opinion, and I'm not the only one who says this, everyone else is going to get wiped out. Even if they never knew anything, whatever. If they don't repent before the Messiah comes, why are they going to be saved? You have to ask, why should they be saved? If they don't repent. Why would God save them? How does being burnt again and again relate to Hashem's good, so good to his creation? Really? You know what Titus did? You know how evil Titus was? God took out Titus with a flea. Titus opened his big fat mouth and he said, your God going to fight me on the water, drown me, fight me on dry land. So what does the Gemara say? He took a flea, tiny, tiny flea, stuck it up his nose and destroyed him. When he died, they opened up his head. He had a bird like this big with like gnawing teeth. God does not have to have mercy when it comes to evil people. Why does he have to have mercy? He has mercy on all his creation. Someone's to marry. Let me ask you. Someone's a rapist. God has to have mercy on that? God should have mercy on a pedophile? He should have mercy on an adulterer. Death penalty. Someone commits homosexuality or bestiality. Let's stick with homosexuality, yeah? More common. No, it's not their fault. They were born that way. Death penalty. We're going to see that in the next chapter. Death penalty. Oh, God should have mercy. Why should you have mercy? Where's God's mercy here? You act in such a way, death penalty. That's a great Shabbos in public. Death penalty. What do you think? God's kidding? These people have the status of a goy, right? Someone does great Shabbos in public. The status of a non-Jew. No joke. Unless he repents. God loves every evil person? I don't think so. King Solomon himself says, time to love, time to hate. Right? As King David's father said in the book of Psalms, he says, I love those that love you, I fight against those that hate you. Those that hate God, he loves them? Really? Why would he love them? Why would he love them? They spit in his face on a daily basis. He's not going to punish them. He's going to feel bad. He has to punish them, but he's going to punish them. Even the Egyptians, they deserve to die a horrible death. And he said, my creation is drowning. How could the angels sing my praise? He still has mercy, but he destroyed them and destroyed the whole nation. People are evil and they don't care, whatever. Why is God going to have mercy on them? Maybe he'll have some mercy, maybe. True mercy? What Titus did, he deserve true mercy? Who says? Why would he deserve true mercy? He deserved true mercy. He deserved to be severely punished. JC, Gemara says good things about him. Well, what he's being punished with. Well, what he did, and he even didn't do it himself, but what his disciples did. Look how many people died in his name. I think he's smelling the roses in paradise in the next world. I don't think so. Not according to what the Gemara says. Certainly not. God should have mercy on what this person did. How many Jews died in his name? Doesn't matter if he said to or not. Well, look how many people died in his name. God should have mercy? Why should have mercy? Maybe he has mercy on certain things, but ultimately, someone is evil to the core. He's going to have mercy. You think people slaughtered thousands of people. Titus, one of them, Nebuzaradan. I'll tell you a story about Nebuzaradan, who was the butcher of Baghdad, right? Nebuchadnezzar's butcher. What did Nebuzaradan kill thousands of Kohanim? Thousands of Kohanim. And he understood for himself what he did. He ended up being Megayer. He ended up converting. So my question always before Tisha B'Av is, why was he allowed to convert? The guy was a butcher. He killed tens of thousands. Allowed to convert. The mind-boggling question. I would have thrown him to the lions. Not a question. Not a question. Yeah, you allow him to convert, come close. You see, that's the power of repentance. But God punishes people severely for what they do. He has mercy, but up to a point. But someone who's evil like that and did such terrible things like he did, God feels bad, he has to do it. And he has to punish him. He sure feels bad, but someone does what he wants. Why God doesn't have infinite mercy? Will it receive some good after these punishments? It depends. Depends on anything's left of the soul. Right? That is a way of atonement. So if God wants that soul in the next world, then that'll be good enough for atonement. If not, maybe the soul will get punished and punished and punished and punished forever. Maybe. I don't think everyone's that evil today. So there'll be something left of them. They should have a portion of the world to come. But again, it depends on who. Some people are going to lose their portion of the world to come. Right? It says the Gemara in Sanhedrin, the end of Sanhedrin. Bunch of groups lost their portion of the world to come. Dora Mabul, one of them, generation of the flood. Dora Flug, another one, generation of the dispersion. Right? Tower of Babel, lost their portion of the world to come. Means they got obliterated. Right? So it depends. How do we know who's going to be left and who's not? We have no idea. God decides. He decides how bad they are and what they did and how they did it and what their intention was and all that. So this means there is reward. Of course there's reward. There is reward in the world to come, right? Just curious, how else will the Ger Toshav program start? There is no Ger Toshav. Can't have a Ger Toshav today. Ger Toshav only applies when there's a Jubilee year. We don't have a Jubilee year. Can have no eyes, can't have a Ger Toshav. Then anyone tells you can have a Ger Toshav, they're lying. Right? And it's not true. Could helping them be like charity. Yeah, you're helping them. Okay, but again, if I had 5 non-Jews and 2 non-Jews in front of me, who am I going to help first? Jews. Yeah. Would it be nice to help out the non-Jews? Yes. If I have time, I can help out the non-Jews. Is it like doing chesed, acts of loving kindness, charity? Yeah. Could very well be. But if there are 13.5 million Jews or more that don't know the Aleph base, and I have the ability to bring them closer, or some of them closer, and choice between them or non-Jews, the mitzvahs that are obvious, it's a pretty obvious answer, right? You're going to help Jews first, right? Now, could you get the mitzvah of chesed for helping them? Yes, but it doesn't come at the expense of Jews. Don't make that mistake. Doesn't come to that expense. I understand no mitzvah, but then there's reward. So read. You have to read the beginning path of the just. Read the introduction path of the just. He says this world cannot be created just for this world. People suffer. People have difficulties. It can't be the end to end all things. That's what he says. The mission in Pirkei Avos, I'll get there one day when I'm about 202 or 109, if I live that long, right? And that is that this world's a portico to the next world. All it is a portico. There has to be another world. There's so much strife, there's so much suffering, so many difficult things that go on in this world. How could this world be the ultimate? This world can't be the ultimate. So the Ramchal says, by conclusion, I'll bring sources. Not that I remember. Could be wrong. But he says by logic. So many people suffer, so many people have difficulty. Why should this world be the end to end all worlds? Doesn't make sense. A child born with leukemia. Child born, I don't know, mentally challenged. Deformed. Woman smoked crack when she was pregnant. Kid comes out deformed. Not the kid's fault. So why do the parents have to deal with this? Well, it's their own fault that happened, but okay, but can't be this is the ultimate. Because people suffer like no tomorrow. So says the Ramchal over there in Path of the Just, this cannot be the ultimate world. Because there's so much suffering, everything else goes on. So how do you know there's reward? There has to be something else. There has to be something else. Doesn't make sense logically. Otherwise. You could say there's nothing else. You're just in this world to suffer. Some people say that. I'm only here to suffer, and I suffered a lot. Okay. But there has to be something else. Right? You have to listen to my podcast a few weeks ago on Gilgulim, on souls coming back. Yeah, I spoke about that on BJQ radio. So, it can't be all about this world. Because this world's a world of strife, world of difficulty. Right? There has to be something else. Doesn't make sense logically. Logically, forget about oral law, forget about the rabbis, forget about anything. Logically, it doesn't make sense that there should be anything else. That there should not be anything else. Is it permissible to host the Shabbos for a non-Jew in a Jewish household? Why not? Not a problem. They can desecrate Shabbos, not an issue. Having a Jew that desecrates Shabbos, they're only going to come, and they're going to go back and forth. That's more of a problem. But for a non-Jew, it's not a problem. Is it better to host a no-hide present for a Jewish household? No, not necessarily. I wouldn't say you'd have to. I wouldn't say you would have to do that. Let me see. This is why I need to study Torah, right? Right. All right. One other. Let's see a few other things here. Yeah, God definitely opens doors. That there's no question. We'll judge ourselves. I heard that when our life will be played. We'll be told to remember this. You don't have. They don't even know if you have to be told that, right? You're going to know it's a pure soul, right? Anyone that's not a body experience, what do they go through? They see their life flash before their eyes. Everybody sees it. Jew and non-Jew see the same thing. Their whole life. So they can't. It's not going to be a question. Well, see what you did over here? I don't even know if you're going to be asked that. Right? That'll be kind of a moot point because you felt what you saw it. You saw it. And that's a scary question because God's not going to ask you, oh, why'd you do this? You can't deny why, that you did it. You can have 100 excuses why you did it, but you can't say you didn't do it. 100%, you can't say you didn't do it. That's embarrassing. That is totally embarrassing, right? Someone asked, and it was bad character trait to get angry. Can't stop myself getting upset when people talk while Torah is being read. Oh, that's a problem. That's a serious problem. I was in a synagogue once, and the rabbi had to get up and bang 100 times. 100 times. That is embarrassing when the Torah is open. Yeah, that is very bad. Bad decorum. Why do they not care to be quiet? Right? And how do we probably repent for being mad at the women? Now, you can hate what they do, you can't hate the person, but how do they not care? A lot of times, people in synagogue, they don't see people. They don't see people all week, so that's an opportunity for them to schmooze because they don't see them all week. You can't blame them, right? I'm not saying it's right. You want to talk, go outside, right? Certainly not when the Torah is open or when the prayer service is going on. True. That I would agree. Why don't they? I mean, I'm not going to answer that, but why? I'll give my spin on it. Why don't they care? I think that's one reason. I think that's one reason because they don't see people for all week. So since they don't see people all week, they catch up. I'm not saying it's right when the Torah scroll open, right? Or even when the prayer service is going on. I'm not saying it's right. That could be a reason why. Right? How do you properly repent for being mad at the women? I would say, think about the fact at least they came to synagogue. Think a few good thoughts about them. Like, they're there. Now, you tell me they don't pray one wick, they're just there talking to people. Okay, but at least they're there. Right? Rick the Miller said a similar thing. He said, someone comes to synagogue, prays there 3 times a day, all he does is walk around, schmoozes, this, that. It's annoying. You're right, it's annoying. How could you love such a person? So think good qualities about them. What's one good quality? They come to synagogue. Come at the same time, more or less. Whether they're to pray, not to pray, it doesn't matter. They're there. They cannot be there. They decide they don't need God, they don't need Shabbos, they don't need anything. Yeah, this helped me quite a bit. There are people do annoying things. I agree. I definitely agree. But if you think, at least that they're there, think, some good thoughts, positive thoughts about them, good. Right? That'll help with that. I don't think men are any better. Definitely don't think men, I was in a synagogue, men were just bad. And it's, a certain synagogue I was at. It's awful. Because I asked the person's father I was there with, I was like, he was telling me, you want to speak to the lawyers? They sit over here. Want to speak to the doctors? They sit over here. The sports fans, they sit over here. I go, where the people who pray sit? I want to say where the people pray. Come on, it's a bad joke. Yeah, kind of stupid, but no one's there to pray, really. Again, I'm not gonna say that, but at least they're there, okay. But if they're schmoozing and during the entire prayer service, which is forbidden anyway for a lot of reasons, but at the end of the day, guess what? It's a problem. I agree. It's a problem. At the same time, it's a test for a person. Things bother people. Yeah, decorum in the synagogue is a serious thing. It's a very serious thing. Well, people don't take it so seriously sometimes. Yeah, it's a problem. It's definitely a problem. Someone there says, someone says unheard of. Women talk during Torah reading. Well, I can tell you from personal experience. My wife was in the women's section. All these women were showing off their rocks. Their diamond rings or whatever. Were they there to pray? Don't know. But that's what a lot of them were doing. So at least they were there. But could I not believe that women are in synagogue chatting? Yeah, definitely possible. Definitely possible. It should be unheard of and unthinkable. Should be. But we're our own worst enemy. It says somewhere that when a person gets angry, they devote him from Shemayim. Well, if a person gets angry, the Gemara says that even if hell was above them, was below them, they wouldn't change. Because anger destroys a person. Right? Anger just burns inside. So yeah, it's a hard thing. Anger is a very hard thing. Everyone has anger at some level. Right? You have to know how to channel it. You have to know how to use it properly. Yeah, there are things that people do that are annoying. Yeah. People do things that are disgusting. Yeah. But, you can hate the act, you can't hate the person, but you got to concentrate what you need to do, and sometimes it's distracting. Yeah. That is true. How do you properly repent? If they didn't know better. Well, once you know better, then you repent. You can't repent for something you didn't know you did wrong. On Yom Kippur, though, at the end of the Shemona Esrei, silent meditation, whatever you want to call it, we say things we know we don't know. So you should get credit for that, but you can't repent for something you didn't know. Once you find out later, then you can repent. What if you never find out about it? Good question. So if the Shemona Esrei takes care of that, things you didn't know you did, so you're good. Right? So even though you didn't really repent, but you said it, then that would take care of it. I don't know if it take care of all of it. Take care of part of it for sure. Is it true? Mercy is only for the righteous. I don't know. You take somebody that was very close to the king. Yeah, and what happened? God slaughtered them. Why did he slaughter them? Because they're very close to the king. So even a small thing they could get slaughtered for. See, by nadav and aviv. Yeah. So he could not show mercy. Depends what the person did. Right? But if at a righteous person's level they did something wrong in God's eyes, even at our level wouldn't really be sin at all. God's gonna have less mercy on them. He has a lot of mercy on them. True, it's not infinite. I wouldn't say it's infinite. Someone says, turn from yourself and turn to God. That's not always an answer, though. That's not an answer. Person, you got to realize what you did wrong. You got to see what triggers it, and then figure out a way to stop it. Right? But you got to make a realistic plan. You got to say, I'm not going to do it. You have a plan how to do it, right? But again, you have to ask yourself why. First of all, why you're doing it. Why in the world are you doing it? Yeah. Then you got to figure out what triggers it, and then you got to figure out a plan how to stop it. Yeah, running out of time here. Let me just see anything else. Someone says Shabbos queen should be treated even more so, right? They haven't seen all week, right? Right. But again, we're our own worst enemy. People get caught up in their own lives. They don't think. How can you not think? You're in the synagogue. You're in God's place. How can you not think? People don't think. People get caught up in their own lives. Someone asked, what time on Monday do I do BJQ radio? That is 10 a.m. 10 a.m. New York time. 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Sunday. A lot of good questions here. I do this every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com. Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on the Q&As, I think, for our fathers. Book of Leviticus. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBIChaimKaufman on at gmail.com, which I'm a good beginning of the day, middle of the day, end of the day.